There we are then. Alan Cairns returning to Westminster. He's represented the seat since 2010. Of course, he was the Secretary of State for Wales, lost that job at the beginning of this campaign. There he is with 27,305 votes, a turnout of 72 and a majority of 3,562. So he's actually increased his majority up from 2,190. Yeah. If we take a look at the share of the vote, Conservatives on 50% of the vote, Labour on 43%, the Greens on 6%, and Gwlad on 1%. And we look at the change since 2017. There we go. Alan Cairns' vote is up 2%. Labour stays the same. The Greens are up 5%. Gwlad up 1%, and a swing in that seat of the Vale of Glamorgan of 1.2% from Labour to the Conservatives. So what does that tell us, Fliss, about his personal
I think Alan Cairns will be absolutely delighted by that, and I think undoubtedly he will regard it as a vindication of his decision to stand, despite the fact that he did have to resign his role as Secretary of State at the beginning of this general election campaign. So, you know, he will feel that having increased his majority there, that, you know, the issues that led to his resignation from the cabinet certainly are not anything that sufficiently troubled Conservative voters in the Vale of Glamorgan. Obviously, it helped that he's riding this trend of Conservative success tonight, but nevertheless, Alan Cairns will regard this as a personal victory, no question about that. Well,
absolutely, absolutely, and I think that if you'd have suggested 3 or 4 weeks ago that this would be the result, you would, you know, it's a excellent result for him, and I suspect very strongly that he hopes he can come back as Secretary of State for Wales on the back of this.
Would he be in the running to go back into the cabinet?
I mean, obviously the outcome of the inquiry we'll have to see, but I think he's certainly in the running. He was regarded as a very hard-working, effective Secretary of State by people around the cabinet table. So to that extent, I'd have thought so, but we'll obviously have to see how that whole story sort of plays out.
Yes, because you did raise the question earlier of whether we would continue to see Welsh secretaries and Scottish secretaries, or whether we would see a minister for the Union.
Yes, and I wonder that, and sort of just because I know some of the big thinking that Boris Johnson's team have been doing about other machinery of government changes, other big things they want to do with departments, whether that might be something that comes into the frame. But the indications are that they're going to try and keep the team largely the same for the next short while, at least until Brexit is through, and then maybe do that bigger reshuffle
But it is
afterwards.
on the agenda.
But it's certainly something that's been talked about many times in the past. Yes.
But it's always on the agenda. Every time there's a reshuffle, I understand that a civil service paper is put in front of the Prime Minister saying, "Isn't this the time you do it?" And there are always reasons not
Another
to.
result coming in, Richard. Clwyd South.
Clwyd South election. To hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows.
Ar ran y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol ar gyfer etholaeth De Clwyd, rwyf yn hysbysu bod nifer y pleidleisiau a gofnodwyd ar gyfer pob ymgeisydd yn yr etholiad hwn fel a ganlyn.
Adams Jamie David, the Brexit Party, 1,468.
Adams Jamie David, the Brexit Party, 1,468.
Alan Christopher James, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 2,137.
Alan Christopher James, Plaid Cymru, 2,137.
Baines Simon Robert Morris, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 16,222.
Baines Simon Robert Morris, Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 16,222.
Davis Callum Dafydd, Welsh Liberal Democrats, 1,496.
Davis Callum Dafydd, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru, 1,496.
Jones Susan Ellan, Welsh Labour, 14,983.
Jones Susan Ellan, Dafydd Cymru, Cymru, 14,983.
Thereby I give public notice that Baines Simon Robert Morris is duly elected as Member of Parliament for the Clwyd South constituency.
And so, a big gain for the Conservatives in North East Wales in the seat of Clwyd South. Simon Baines, there he is, a trustee of the Llangollen Eisteddfod. He runs a charity called Concertina, which concentrates on music for the elderly. He's the Mayor of Llanfyllin, and he's heading to Westminster. 16,222 votes, a majority of 1,239, unseating Susan Elan-Jones of the Labour Party. Plaid Cymru on 2,137, followed by Labour and the Brexit Party. A quick look at the share of the vote in Clwyd South. 45% for the Conservatives, Labour on 41, and Plaid Cymru on 6, and the Liberal Democrats on 4%. A quick look at the change in Clwyd South. There we are, Labour down 9%, Conservatives up 4. And that is a swing of, in Clwyd South. Let's have a quick look at the swing, please. There we go. It is a swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 7.5%. Let's go to Llanelli.
Lewis, swyddog canlyniadau I etholaeth Llanelli yn datgan fod y cyfanswm o bleidleisiau a roddwyd I bob ymgeisydd fel y ganlyn. I, Helena Lewis, returning officer for the Llanelli constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. Arthur Mary Francis Gaynor, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 7,048. 7,048. Boucher Susan, Brexit Party, 4,605. 3,605. Griffith Nia Rhiannon, Llafur Cymru, Welsh Labour, 1,015,125. 16,125. Ray Tamara Louise, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 1,455. 11,455. Felly, rwyf yn rhoi hysbysiad cyhoeddus fod Griffith Nia Rhiannon wedi ei hethol fel aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Llanelli. Therefore, I give public notice that Griffith Nia Rhiannon is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Llanelli constituency.
So Llanelli stays in Labour hands. The MP there, Nia Griffith, returning. She's represented the area since 2005. Shadow Secretary of State for Defence. She speaks 5 languages, and she's off to Westminster again. There she is. 16,125. 10 out of 63,000, majority of 4,670. Let's take a look at the share of the vote. And there she is, 42% for Labour. That would be a big share of the vote. Wouldn't it? And the Conservatives on 30%, Plaid Cymru on 18%, Brexit Party on 9%. And the change in Llanelli, Labour down 11%, Conservatives up 6%. And a quick look at the swing. The swing in Llanelli is, if we can just see it, here it comes, Labour to Conservatives, 8.8% swing to the Conservatives in Llanelli, which is probably worth a bit of a chat later. But let's look at Swansea West, because we had a flurry there of results. Geraint Davies staying on in Swansea West, and we can look at the share of the vote in Swansea West. Here we are, Labour on 52%, Conservatives on 29%, Liberal Democrats in 3rd place, followed by Plaid Cymru, and then the Brexit Party. And the change in Swansea West, Labour down 8%, Conservative down 2%, Lib Dems up 5%, Plaid Cymru up 1%, Brexit Party up 6%. And take a quick look at the swing in Swansea West. Labour to Conservative of 2.9. Quick look at Islwyn, which also has declared in that flurry of results. Chris Evans staying... No, that is not Chris Evans. Our graphics are having a bit of fun. They're testing us tonight, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are, aren't they?
Islwyn,
But you're too sharp for them, Beth.
There he is.
There we are.
He's holding on in Islwyn. And the majority of 5,464. Let's look at the share.
Can I just say the Conservatives getting 10,000 in Islwyn? It's the first time since the 1920s that they've got that many votes in that part of the world.
We're looking at the share of that. 29%.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is pretty amazing.
I mean, Labour are still obviously well ahead, but nonetheless,
Yes.
between that is still for the Conservatives in Islwyn.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. And of course, these are
Could put a hold
constituencies.
for next time. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Well, indeed.
And this is a constituency that the Brexit Party really tried to hammer. I mean, they went for some of these Leave voting Valais seats big time. They went particularly Islwyn, Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent. And polling 14% there, but collectively the Leave vote fairly hefty, despite Chris Evans holding it for Labour.
Yeah, and if we can quickly look at the change in Islwyn just to see the growth in Conservative, up 2%. Brexit Party, the great beneficiaries of any doubting Labour voters. There we are. We're going back to, I think this is Swansea West. Let's, this is Swansea East. We've had Swansea West, of course. Yeah, let's go to Swansea again, and there we go. They're back to declare. Carolyn Harris in the background there.
Etholaeth Dwyrain Abertawe, Swansea East constituency. Yr wyf fi, Hugh Evans, sef swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn yr etholiad a ganhaliwyd ar dydd Iau 12 Rhagfyr 2019, drwy hyn yn ysbysu bod nifer y pleidleisiau a gofnodwyd I bob ymgeisydd yn yr etholiad fel y ganlyn. I, Hugh Evans, being the acting returning officer at the election held on Thursday, 12th of December 2019, do hereby give notice that the number of votes cast for each candidate at the election is as follows. Evans Christopher Michael John, known as Chris. Wales Green Party, Plaid Werdd Cymru, 583. Harris Carolyn, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 17,405, 17,405. Harvard Geraint Allen, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 1,905, 1,905. Howard Denise, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 9,435, 9,435. Hutchison Chloe, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaid Ryddfrydol Cymru, 1,409, 1,409. Willicum Anthony John, known as Tony, Brexit Party, 2,842, 2,842. Ac yr wyf drwy hyn yn datgan bod, and I hereby declare that Carolyn Harris wedi ei iawn hethol has been duly elected. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, so big smiles for Carolyn Harris, who will be returning to Westminster, Deputy Leader of Welsh Labour, of course. She's a well-known campaigner to abolish fees for child burials and has spoken quite frankly about abuse in politics. There we are. She will continued to represent that constituency, and a majority of 7,970.
Yes, and no big surprise there to see her holding that. And she has been, you know, a big figure in the campaign in terms of appearances in party election broadcasts and some of the rallies for supporters and that sort of thing. When Jeremy Corbyn visited at the weekend, he held a big rally in Swansea, and she was there on stage revving up the crowd, one of the people revving up the crowd there for Jeremy Corbyn.
And if we look at the change in Swansea East, a comfortable majority, but there is a bit of a change. Labour down 12% and the Conservatives up 2%. And again, the Brexit Party up 8%, and the swing Labour to Conservatives of 6.9%. Again, you're smiling, Mr Wilkins. It's proving to be a pretty good night. I mean, that was not a target, was it? But,
no.
But you're making inroads.
Well, certainly are. Yeah, absolutely. And I like the way the Welsh seats are very efficient. They all declare at the same time, so that's great. So we can talk about them well. But it's fascinating, and you know, some also totemic things. Thinking back to the last time around, so we talked about Wrexham earlier. I mean, a remarkable victory for the Conservatives there. I mean, I think the first time in sort of over 100 years they've held the seat. And of course, in 2017, it was a key target for Theresa May. It was famously the place where she went and where she made the sort of famous nothing has changed thing, which was in a sense the totemic moment when that campaign switched and when it started to go wrong. So a bit of sort of a cathartic moment this evening for Wrexham to go Tory. And of course Clwyd South, which where Boris Johnson has started his political career, standing there some time ago, so I'm sure he laid the groundwork for what's happened this evening. But it's interesting. I mean, the point was made about the swings. The swings aren't as noticeable as in, for example, the northeast of England, and that's something to be borne in mind. But a simple message of these seats going Tory is very good news.
Welcome back to Professor Laura McAllister, who joins us again. And in your absence, that red wall up north in the northeast is turning blue.
As we predicted, yes. I mean, as Chris said, not with such enormous swings as in some of the seats just over the border, but efficient swings to win them for the Conservatives, as we predicted. And we knew that there would be some variety in the Welsh seats, not least because we have a Remain alliance, we have the Brexit Party standing against the Conservatives in some of those seats. But nevertheless, you know, those swings were enough to capture those seats. And that, you know, these are seats which have never been held by the Conservatives in the case of Wrexham. We've still got the South Wales seats to come where there's a chance of the Conservatives making gains as well, like Bridgend. And, you know, whichever way you look at it, this is a remarkable night for the Conservatives.
Absolutely. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens to the remaining 2 North East seats. You know, 3 bricks knocked out of Labour's red wall there in the North East, as you suggest. Speaking to Labour sources in Delyn a few days ago, they were cautiously optimistic that they might be able to hang on to it. Whether they've been able to do that, we'll have to wait and see. And I think Allen and Deeside would be a very big ask for the Conservatives,
okay.
So that will be interesting to see.
Let's just take a look at the detail of the Ogmore result. Chris Elmore returning as the Labour MP for Ogmore with 17,602 votes. The Conservatives on 9,797, a majority of 7,805 for Chris Elmore. And we look at the share of the vote, Labour on 50, the Conservatives on 28, Brexit on 8, Plaid Cymru on 8, Lib Dems on 4, Greens on 2, and the change since last time, Labour down about 13%, and the Conservatives up 3%, the Brexit Party up 3%, and the swing from Labour to the Conservative, 7.6% swing. Sorry, Felicity.
That's all right. Brexit Party up 8% there, not 3. Tories up 3%, Brexit Party up 8%.
I was reading off a different... Right, OK, thank you very much.
And, you know, another decent swing to the Conservatives there, nearly an 8% swing to the Conservatives. Again, not a seat that they were ever remotely likely to win, but it shows the direction of the night.
Exactly, and I think what's interesting as well is that, you know, these are rock-solid valley seats. You know, Ogmore is the 3 valleys north of Bridgend, and a third of them are voting Conservative. That tells you something about volatility now amongst the electorate and preparedness to vote Conservative.
No surprise that Plaid Cymru have held on in Dwyfor Meirionnydd, where their parliamentary leader, Liz Saville-Roberts, will return as the the Member of Parliament. There she is, on 14,447 votes. The Conservatives, Thomas Davis in second, 9,707. Labour in third, Brexit Party fourth place, a majority of 4,740, which is roughly where she was last time, 4,850, so just a tad down. The share of the vote for Plaid Cymru, 48%. The Conservatives on 32, and if we can just look at the change, Plaid Cymru up 3%, Conservatives up 3, Labour down 7, Brexit Party up 6, and it's a swing from Plaid Cymru to the Conservatives, a tiny swing, but not much moving in Dwyfor Meirionnydd. Yeah, and she's been very prominent throughout the campaign.
She really has, and not just throughout the campaign as well. I mean, she was the party's parliamentary leader during the last parliament, and with everything that was going on with Brexit, you know, her profile has grown and grown and grown over the course of the last 2.5 years, which will obviously, you know, have done her good going into this particular campaign as well. You know, she has been there on network news bulletins along with other Remain parties, you know, so...
Let's have a word with the new Member of Parliament for Wrexham. Good evening and congratulations. I should say good morning. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Why do you think you've had a successful night? Is it all about Brexit?
Yes, the people of Wrexham wanted Brexit done and delivered, and that was clearly what the message I was getting on the doorstep. And I think that's why we've got a majority of 2,000 tonight.
So you're heading to Westminster. Your priority is Brexit, very much by the end of January. And what about the negotiations? Where do you stand on no deal? Are you relaxed about a no deal Brexit?
No. Boris Johnson's deal, I'm confident we'll get through Westminster by Christmas and we'll be out of Europe by the end of January.
Yeah, but what happens after that?
It's not going to happen. We're having good results so far. We've got a great result here. That's what's going to happen.
But what about the trade deal? I mean, your slogan is Get Brexit Done, but everybody knows it's the first step in the Brexit journey. It's a big step, but then it's the negotiation to leave by the end of the year. Boris Johnson set a firm timetable. I just wonder, as a new Member of Parliament, where do you stand on that? Are you a firm... It's got to have a deal, or would you be relaxed about leaving on WTO terms?
No, I would like to have a deal, and the people I've spoken to on the doorstep also want a deal, but they want to be out and they want the democratic will upheld, and that feels very strongly when I've been going around the last 6 weeks door knocking, that people want their voice heard and they want their vote back in 2016 taken into account.
And what does it feel like tonight to be the first female Conservative Welsh MP?
Oh, I'm delighted and privileged.
And what's the plan now? Head straight to Westminster tomorrow?
Yes, I might have a little tincture later on, but I think I might be on Monday.
OK, well, congratulations.
Thank you, Beth.
Sarah Atherton, the new MP for Wrexham. Yeah, the big first chink in that red wall.
I think
one of many.
A tincture wouldn't go amiss here either, would it? I mean, what time is it?
Had
Nearly 2:30 now. We've put in a good shift, haven't we, already?
What would you like, this tea coming? I think we'll get you
something stronger.
Well, I've got some Satsumas going if anyone wants one now. Yes, I mean, this is a significant moment, obviously. When the Welsh Conservative campaign went askew over the Ross England scandal. Obviously someone who was selected as an Assembly candidate for the 2021 elections, who a judge accused of deliberately sabotaging a rape trial. One of the criticisms, if you like, of the Welsh Conservative Party was the lack of women in senior positions. And I think in 2019 it was an extraordinary statistic that the party had never returned a single woman to represent Wales in Parliament. Now, tonight there are a handful. There are a handful of women Conservatives who could get elected, but Sarah Atherton, she's always going to be the first one who won tonight, and that means a lot, doesn't it?
We're going to get the results very shortly, we understand, from Aberavon. We spoke to Stephen Kinnock earlier, so let's cross there for the result.
y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol I etholiaeth Aberafon yn datgan fod y cyfanswm o bleidleisiau a rodwydd I bob ymgeisydd fel y ganlyn. I, Stephen Phillips, Acting Returning Officer for the Aberafon constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. Captain Beanie, Independent, 731, 731. Glenda Marie Davis, Brexit Party, 3,108, 3108. Georgia Renee Finney, the Green Party, Plaid Weld, 450, 450. Nigel Thomas Hunt, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 2,711, 2711. Sheila Kingston Jones, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaeth Rhyddfrydol Cymru, 1,072, 1072. Stephen Nathan Kinnock, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 17,008, 17008. Charlotte Jean Lang, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, and Ymgeisydd Plaid Gaedwadol Cymru, 6,518, 6518. The total number of rejected ballot papers was 82. Therefore, I give public notice that Stephen Nathan Kinnock is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Aberafon constituency. Mae Stephen Nathan Kinnock wedi ei ethol fel aelod seneddol dros etholiaeth Aberafon. Diolch yn fawr.
Stephen Kinnock then returning as the MP for a rock-solid Labour seat in Aberafon, but his majority is down. His majority this time 10,490 compared to 16,761 in 2017. He's married to the former Danish Prime Minister and, of course, the son of Glenys and Neil Kinnock. His share of the vote, 54% for Labour, the Conservatives on 21, Brexit Party on 10, Plaid Cymru on 9, Lib Dems on 3 and the Independents on 2. And if we look at the change since last time, 14% down for Labour, Brexit Party up 10%. And this is what Mr Kinnock was telling us earlier about being in touch with his constituents, as was Chris Bryant talking about that too. And the swing from Labour to the Conservatives, 8.6%. So the Conservatives making inroads in these rock-solid Labour seats.
Making inroads, but I think what's interesting about some of these seats, the Valley seats, is that it's underlining what we thought might happen, that votes would transfer to the Brexit Party as well as to the Conservative Party. Because if people are voting on a pure Leave Remain basis, then the Brexit Party offers a kind of staging post for voters who don't want to switch directly from one to the other. And I think you can underestimate, particularly in the South Wales Valleys, just how culturally problematic it is for some people to make that decision. I don't think that's as difficult in seats in the North East, actually, because of the demographics there.
Let's go to Rhondda. I think we can hear the results from the Rhondda.
2019, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows.
Yr wyf fi sydd am llofnod isod, sef y dirprwy swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn yr etholiad ar gyfer aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Rhondda a gynhaliwyd ar y 12 o Rhagfyr 2019, drwy hyn yn ysbysu bod nifer y pleidleisiau gofnodwyd dros bob ymgeisydd yn yr etholiad fel y ganlyn.
Berman, Rodney Simon, Welsh Liberal Democrats.
Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru,
612.
612.
Bryant, Chris, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 16,115.
1,015.
Kennard, Branwyn, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 4,069.
4,069.
Jarvis, Hannah Elizabeth, Welsh Conservative Party candidate.
Ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru,
4,675.
4,675.
Thomas Sean, Green Party, Plaid Werth, 438.
438.
Watkins John, Brexit Party, 3,733.
3,733.
The number of ballot papers rejected was 83.
Nifer y pleidleisiau wrthodwyd oedd 83.
And I do hereby declare that the said Chris Bryant is duly elected for the Rhondda constituency.
So Chris Bryant returning to Westminster to represent the Rhondda with 16,115 votes. A very emotional Mr Bryant speaking to us earlier, suggesting that much soul-searching needs to happen within the Labour Party this evening. The Conservatives in second place, turnout 59%, not the highest indeed we've seen tonight, and a majority of 11,440, so his majority is about 2,000 down on last time. His share of the vote is at 54%, the Conservatives on 16%, followed by Plaid Cymru, the Brexit Party, Lib Dems and Greens. And if we look at the change since 2017, Labour is down 10%. The Conservatives up, and the Brexit Party up 13%. And Plaid Cymru down too. They really went for it in Rhondda, of course, Leanne Wood's seat, but down 9%. And the swing from Labour to Conservatives, 7.7%.
Yes, again, you know, story of all the Valley's declarations so far, that, isn't it? You know, that these are rock-solid Labour seats with whopping majorities, but nonetheless, there are some pretty hefty dents in those majorities so far.
And lower turnout.
Yeah.
Which gives you some indication of the resistance, I think, to Jeremy Corbyn, which is what we were hearing from lots of people, Labour workers in the Valley.
And I was speaking to Labour campaigners, seasoned campaigners, who were saying to me a lot of the time, for traditional Labour voters who didn't like Jeremy Corbyn, rather than vote for some other party, they suspected what those people would do would just stay at home. And perhaps that is what's happening.
That is what is happening. And in areas like that, it's quite a leap to leave Labour. Maybe easier to go to the Brexit Party than to the Conservatives.
That's my point about all of these Valley seats. I think culturally, especially for certain generations, the thought of actually switching directly from Labour to Conservative is a step too far. So given this has been a Brexit election or framed by Brexit, the move to the Brexit Party on a temporary basis is a more palatable option. But I think what's interesting about all of this actually is that it underlines just how willingly volatile the electorate is. And that means that all parties have things to play for in future elections, because now once people move from one party to another, it creates a kind of habit of being able to do so. And that will give heart to the parties who've done less well tonight, that they can recover in future elections.
And just hearing that Labour think they've kept Gower. By a decent amount.
Yeah, and Gower imminent in the next few minutes, we're told. So that's not such low-hanging fruit, and you're not quite reaching, perhaps.
No, it's interesting. And I suppose when we look at the swings we've seen so far, they're not quite as much as you might have hoped for, I suppose, so maybe that will be borne out. Probably I'll just make on the two we've just seen, the two of the least surprising results of the night with Mr Kinnock and Chris Bryant being re-elected. But already you're starting to see the sort of recriminations in Labour going on about, and the fight for what happens next. And Jess Phillips, a very prominent Labour MP, has already spoken out about saying that Jeremy Corbyn needs to go. But I think both Chris Bryant and Stephen Kinnock will be really significant voices in that debate. They're very thoughtful MPs. I thought Kinnock spoke very sensibly earlier.
A potential leader, a future leader.
And possibly so. So they could be very, you know, they might have a very big future in the Labour Party after this election, I think.
When you talk about recriminations, Labour's Jess Phillips, another one touted as a potential leader, saying that people just didn't like Jeremy Corbyn on the doorstep. They didn't like Boris either, but they didn't trust that we were going to do the things we said we were going to do. So this post-mortem is well underway.
It is, and it's going to be very interesting tomorrow to see how Jeremy Corbyn and those around him handle all of that and what they decide to do.
OK, I think there's a very big hat in Gower. It's time to go to Gower.
Ar wy fi, Hugh Evans, sef swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn yr etholiad a gynhaliwyd ar dydd Iau 12 Rhagfyr 2019 drwy hyn yn hysbysu bod nifer y pleidleisiau a gofnodwyd I bob ymgeisydd yn yr etholiad fel y ganlyn.
I, Sally Goldstone, being the returning officer at the election held on Thursday, the 12th of December 2019, do hereby give notice that the number of votes cast for each candidate at the election is as follows. Antoniazzi Antonia Louise, known as Tonia, Welsh Labour.
Llafur Cymru, 20,208.
20,208. Bennett Samuel John, known as Sam, Welsh Liberal Democrats to stop Brexit.
Democratiaid Ryddfrydol Cymru I stopio Brexit 2236.
2,236. Davis John Brendan Sidney, known as John, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales.
2288.
2,288. O'Brien Francesca, Welsh Conservative Party candidate.
Ymgeisydd Plaid Gaedwadol Cymru 18,371.
18,371. Ross Robert James Vincent, known as Rob, Brexit Party.
1,379.
1,379.
Ac yr wyf drwy hyn yn datgan bod
And I hereby declare that Tonia Antoniazzi
wedi ei iawn hethol
has been duly elected.
Yeah, and that would be a big sigh of relief. No, I was going to say maybe a tear, not quite, no, but a big sigh of relief for Tonia Antoniazzi, 20,208. The Conservatives were really targeting this one, but didn't quite make it on 18,371, a majority of 1,837 for Tonia Antoniazzi, who was a teacher. She's a single mum, and yeah, she returns to Parliament. Quite a campaigner and quite a big voice in Westminster. Let's look at the share. 45% for Labour, Conservatives on 41, Plaid Cymru on 5, Lib Dems on 5, Brexit Party on 3, and the change since last time, Labour is down 4%, Conservatives down 1%. Plaid, Libs and Brexit Party all up, and it's a swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 1.5%. So, yeah.
She'll be absolutely thrilled by that. You know, she was in the fight of her life there.
Let's just hear what she has to say.
Having to ask the people of Gower for their approval so soon after the last time. And it makes me think that they have been disastrously served by a political shambles that has served to bring the UK into disrepute, makes a mockery of our media and democratic process, and gives us politicians no credit at all. In thanking the other candidates, which I do now, may I give at least one of them some well-intended and heartfelt advice. If the Brexit vote was anything, it was a cry in the dark from people who believed that they counted for nothing. They were taken advantage of. And it is a role of politicians to create hope and give people a meaningful voice. The last decade has shown what happens when you forget people, asset strip public services and allow the self-styled dark puppeteers to manipulate and lead without accountability. This... While you may think that that is rubbish, there is a hard truth to accept. This election must be This election must be the moment when we end a disgraceful culture of alternative facts and Trumpian politics.
OK, very emotional scenes from Tonia Antoniazzi. We need to go to Anglesey for the result there.
Diolch i'r staff I gyd am eich gwaith heddiw a gyda'r nos. Bydd yr uchel sirif Mrs Susan Jones yn gwneud y cyhoeddiad. Rhaid i mi bwysleisio dod os neb I amharu dim ar y cyhoeddiad yma. Mae croeso chi dynnu lluniau. We are now nearing the final stage, the official announcement. Before that, thank you to you all staff members for your work today and this evening. The High Sheriff, Mrs Susan Jones, will make the announcement, I must emphasise that there is no disruption to the announcement. You are welcome to take photos.
Clearly not the announcement yet.
Are they? Which gives us time, actually, just to reflect a little bit on the Gower result. Because, you know, clearly very emotional. Yeah. Clearly, you know, emotions running very high. And it hasn't been a very pleasant campaign locally. And she was referring, of course, to comments made.
I think they are declaring now. Right. Let's go back to Ynys Môn.
Aganlyn. I, Susan Jones, the returning officer for the Ynys Môn constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. Ap Dafydd, Aled, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 10,419, 10,418. Crosby, Virginia Ann, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 20,959, 12,959. Jenna Helen Sarah, Brexit Party, 2,184, 2,184. Roberts Mary Elizabeth, Llafur Cymru, Welsh Labour, 10,991, 10,991. Felly, rwyf yn rhoi hysbysiad cyhoeddus fod Virginia Ann Crosby wedi'i hethol fel aelod seneddol ar gyfer etholaeth Ynys Môn. Therefore, I give public notice that Virginia Ann Crosby is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Ynys Môn constituency.
So the Conservatives taking Ynys Môn, and there she is, the new Member of Parliament, Virginia Crosby. She was a dolphin trainer, recently a maths trainer, maths teacher, I should say. She's worked in, it is early morning, a background in healthcare and banking, and she went to school in Colchester, and she's now the MP for Ynys Môn, knocking the Labour Party into second place and Aled Ap Dafydd for the Plaid Cymru into third place. Brexit Party's Helen Jenner in fourth place. So the Conservative Party now have 2 women MPs from Wales. Let's look at the share of the vote. There we are, the Conservatives on 35, Labour on 30, Plaid Cymru on 29 and 6% for the Brexit Party. And the change since last time is that the Conservatives are up 8, Labour down 12, Plaid Cymru edging up 1, Brexit Party up 1, and it's a swing from Labour to the Conservatives, a big swing of 9.7%. And this is such an interesting seat. It goes three ways, doesn't it?
Hugely. Yeah. I think this is significant, I think, for a couple of reasons. You know, that kind of swing is in line with the swings that we've seen in England. It suggests to me that, you know, it's become, certainly in this election, a much more traditional Labour-Conservative battle than it should have been, really. But I think once the presidential nature of this campaign established itself, it was going to be very difficult for Plaid to edge in and create some kind of competition around that. But you know, these kind of seats are strange ones, aren't they, in the sense that it's held by Plaid Cymru at assembly level. It's generally stuck with the incumbent against the odds in some respects. But of course, Albert Owen was standing down this time. And it almost always changes when the incumbent stands down.
And he was he had a popular vote, didn't he? He had a following.
But isn't it interesting that, you know, the Conservative who's won here is a new candidate, somebody that hasn't been in place for very long. Usually candidates are important in a seat like Ynys Môn.
Absolutely, yes. You know, their background, you know, local connections, that sort of thing. So you know, this is a good win for the Conservatives, and they will be very pleased.
It is, but I think it underlines again how significant the Brexit dimension to this election has been. That the other rules of engagement that usually happen in seats like Ynys Môn have gone out of the window.
And it was a packed seat, wasn't it? There was an alliance in terms of Remain.
And yet Plaid finished third again.
Yeah. And in terms of Ynys Môn, Sean, was that expected?
I think the swing there was really significant, so I'm a bit surprised by that, and particularly when you look at the seats we've already seen where we've been commenting that the swing wasn't noticed. So I think that's a really significant, slightly surprising victory. But interesting coming just off the back of the Gower one, which we were talking about, where actually that was clearly an interesting, lots of local dynamics there, where I think that was the one that was talked about as being really something that the Conservatives were targeting and just came up short. So interesting to see those two next to each other so quickly.
So some unexpected. Let's take a look at the Cynon Valley then. Pontypridd we're going to look at. Thank you very much. Alex Davis-Jones is holding that seat. Owen Smith, of course, a big name in the Labour Party, standing down. He challenged Jeremy Corbyn, pretty disillusioned, and she's now the new MP with 17,381, with a majority of 5,887, and a share of that probably makes it about 44% in terms of the Labour vote. The Conservatives on 29, Plaid Cymru on 13, Brexit on 7. And a change, the Labour vote is certainly down 11. The Conservatives up 3 and Plaid Cymru up 2. And it's a swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 6.8% in Pontypridd. And how will Owen Smith be feeling tonight? Probably not a fan of Corbyn. He challenged him.
He did. He challenged him for the leadership. Some people in the party felt that he went too soon with that challenge, and it was a very controversial move on his part, and not just because it upset supporters of Jeremy Corbyn, but nevertheless, Owen Smith has been very frank about his views on the direction that the party's been going in, and the way that Jeremy Corbyn has been approaching the big issue of the day, Brexit, once again.
Well, quite, and you could say that Owen Smith was prescient in terms of seeing what might happen in this election. You know, he was very clear that he didn't see Jeremy Corbyn as a Labour leader that could win a general election. And it looks as if that's the case again. For this is the 4th election that Labour has lost.
Yeah. And
not all under Corbyn's stewardship, of course.
Another big name, of course, leaving was Ann Clwyd, not standing in Cynon Valley. If we can look at the result for the Cynon Valley. Beth Winter is the new MP for the Cynon Valley. Born and raised in the Cynon Valley, a policy and communications officer at the University and College Union Wales. So there she is. She'll be heading to Westminster with 15,533 votes and a majority, a hefty one of 8,822. Bearing in mind that Ann Clwyd's majority was 13,000 plus. 51% is the share of the vote in the Cynon Valley for the Labour Party. Conservatives on 22%. The Brexit Party on 10%, Plaid Cymru on 8%. And if we look at the change, Labour is down 10%, Conservatives up 3%, and the Brexit Party up 10% and Plaid down 5%. And it's a swing from Labour to the Conservatives in the Cynon Valley of, let's see, 6.2%.
About the same again, you know, they're quite uniform, aren't they, in their swings, you know, 6 to 7% swing. We should say end of an era, genuine end of an era, to see Ann Clwyd stepping down in the Cynon Valley as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Some big names stepping down, not just in Wales, but throughout the UK. Will be an extremely different
set of MPs, isn't it? You know, we knew there were going to be 6 new MPs because 6 MPs were standing down, but, you know, there's a lot of churn here. Almost, you know, we could be in a position where a third of MPs are new.
And slightly similar, not the same numbers, but when Tony Blair had his landslide victory in 1997, a lot of people who maybe didn't expect to end up in Parliament suddenly ended up in Parliament and sort of had to learn the ropes really quickly. And there might be a bit of that here, some Conservative candidates who maybe didn't always expect to win tonight, but now find themselves going to Westminster tomorrow on Monday.
Well, if you can train a dolphin, you can probably
train anybody. And do a bit of maths.
And do some
maths. At the same time.
Yeah.
Let's talk to the MP, the returning MP for the Gower, Tony Antoniazzi. Congratulations, good morning.
Thank you very much. Hi.
I hope you can hear us. We were listening to your speech there. It was very impassioned. We had to leave you to cut to Ynys Môn, but you were being jeered. You're clearly quite emotional tonight. It's not an easy night for Labour. Great relief for you personally, but it's not an easy night for Labour.
No, it's not an easy night, and it's not been an easy 6 weeks. This campaign has been very tough. It's been unnecessary, and it's created a lot of damage to the country.
And in terms of your personal seats, I mean, was it touch and go? Is that how you felt in Gower? You can be honest now.
Well, you know, I've never taken this seat for granted. It's always been a marginal, literally, we've been knocking on doors and people have been saying they don't know. Up until today, well, yesterday, they were saying they still didn't know until they went into the polling rooms. So we are in a really, really challenging times now as a Labour Party, and we have got to look to how we are going to reset the button and move forward.
And how do you reset the button then? Presumably that means a new tier at the top?
Well, we've got to look at that. There's no point hiding away from the fact that how many elections we have now lost. We have got to regroup. We have got to be the better party. We have got to be strong opposition, and we have to take control of the situation, because we have lost some very, very good MPs tonight, and it's very upsetting to see. This shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't have been the situation we have found ourselves in.
And why do you think that's happened? Is it down to Jeremy Corbyn? Everybody says he's Marmite, or lots of people have suggested that. I mean, has he been an asset on your doorsteps?
We've had a mixed response about Jeremy on the doorstep. I'm not going to say any different. However, the thing is, the media and what Boris Johnson has got away with his rhetoric is really, really dangerous. I am really concerned about what Parliament is going to look like when we get back next week and what is going to happen next. And it's those next steps that we have to be on the ball and fighting the Tories, because they're not going to walk all over Britain, they're not going to walk all over Wales, and they are not going to get their way and make my constituents poorer.
And it will be your job as part of the main opposition party to ensure, if indeed that happens, to ensure that. And I'm asking you, have you got the right leader to do that?
I think we're going to have to look at the leadership. We're going to have to look at the situation that we are in. You can't just lose 3, general elections and not change your leadership. We will,
So he's got
but I am not putting the blame.
position. Stephen Kinnock has said on this programme, yeah, he should, and you agree?
Yes, I totally agree. This is a situation we have now found ourselves in, and it is completely, we need to set the reset button and move on.
And how do you deal with Brexit now? It will happen if this turns out, the exit poll is true and we're heading that way. How do you deal with Brexit in January and over the year?
We have to look at the deal that Boris has put to us. We're going to have to scrutinise. We're going to have the time to look at it properly. And we've got to work together with other parties. Now is the time to have a united front and to take on the Tories head on and look at moving on and getting, and sorting Brexit out. We need to move on.
OK. Tonia Antoniazzi, heading back to Westminster, thank you very much for joining us. Let's go to Newport West, where they're about to declare. They're getting on the stage, the candidates there. Now, we've been hearing mixed rumours about Newport West, haven't we, Fliss?
We have, yes. Signs that the Conservatives have been pushing hard in Newport West. Looking at the faces there, it's hard to tell exactly who's feeling on top and who isn't.
Yeah.
Though a smile there from Ruth
by-election,
Jones.
Earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yes, they've done some voting in Newport West this year, that's for sure.
The election of a Member of Parliament for the Newport West constituency, held on Thursday, the 12th of December 2019, hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election are as follows. Clark Jonathan Thomas, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 1,187. Edwards Cameron Owen, the Brexit Party, 1,727. Evans Matthew Robert Hatton, Welsh Conservative Party, 18,075. Jones Ruth Lorraine, Welsh Labour, 18,977. Jones Ryan John, Welsh Liberal Democrats, 2,565. Womack Helen Amelia, the Green Party, 902. The number of ballot papers rejected in Newport West totalled 130, so I hereby declare that the said Jones Ruth Lorraine is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for Newport West.
Okay, so Ruth Jones hanging on there in Newport West. Let's go to Clwyd West.
Iwan Davies, y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol I etholiaeth Gorllewin Clwyd yn datgan fod y cyfanswm o bleidleisau a roddwyd I bob ymgeisydd fel a ganlyn. I, Iwan Davies, Acting Returning Officer for the Clwyd West constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. David Ian Jones, Welsh Conservative Party, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 20,403, 20,403. Joanne Thomas, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 13,656, 13,656. David James Compton Wilkins, Liberal Democrats, 2,237, 2,237. Hugh Elfed Williams, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 3,907, 3,907. Ac felly, mae'r ymgeisydd canlynol wedi I ethol, and therefore the following candidate is elected, David Ian Jones.
So, David Jones, who had considered leaving Parliament, but he's back. Former Secretary of State for Wales, changed his mind, stood again and won. So he is returning to Parliament.
He said he wanted to see Brexit through, didn't he?
He did. He did.
And he'll be pleased with that, although I don't think it was in doubt really.
Yeah, and his majority has actually increased, almost doubled. So let's look at the share of the vote. If we can, there we go. I think it's about 51% for the Conservatives, 34% for Labour, Plaid on 10, Lib Dems on 6, and the change, the Conservative vote is up 3, Labour down 6, Plaid remaining the same, and the Lib Dems up 3, and it is swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 4.2%. Now then, David Jones returning. I think we should go over to a former employee of David Jones and let's hear what she has to say, but she's with Sarah.
Yeah, Laura, you actually shouted out, yes, as he... I mean, you're obviously very closely connected because you've worked so closely with him, but were you surprised that he got re-elected?
The seat was not in question. I thought it was very interesting that Gareth Thomas, who was the previous Labour MP, his wife chose to stand against David this time, so clearly Labour keeping it a family affair in Clwyd West. But I think the bellwether seats from the northeast of Wales meant that this seat was never going to be a problem. But I'm thrilled that he's back in Parliament. I think it's a great thing for the Conservative Party. And I think he's a strong contender to be Welsh Secretary in about 24 hours' time.
And what about those other seats that you've won in northeast Wales that the Conservative Party have won? I mean, are they hold-on-able to, or is it just this time?
I think that remains to be seen. I think a lot of the votes we've picked up in the northeast of Wales, and certainly in Ynys Môn, Anglesey, that's going to be a big effort to hold it. Obviously, we've got the Assembly elections coming up in 2021. If the Welsh Assembly, if the Welsh Conservative group in the Assembly can deliver on some of those seats and turning them into a majority in the Assembly, then we really will be on track for a shift change in Welsh politics for the next 10 years.
Right, let's hold it there. We've got a declaration from Carmarthen East.
Rwy fi, Helena Lewis, y swyddog canlyniadau I etholaeth dwyrain Caerfyrddin a Dinefwr, yn datgan fod y cyfanswm o bleidleisiau a roddwyd I bob ymgeisydd fel y ganlyn. I, Helena Lewis, returning officer for the Carmarthen East constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. Carol Maria Rose, Llafur Cymru, Welsh Labour, 8,622. 8,622. Edwards David Jonathan, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 15,939, 15,939. Hughes Anthony Havard Maengwyn, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 4,010, 130, 14,130. Prosser Peter Graham, Brexit Party, 2,311, 2,311. Felly, rwyf yn rhoi hysbysiad cyhoeddus fod Edwards David Jonathan wedi ei ethol fel aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Dwyrain Caerfyrddin a Dinefwr. Therefore, I give public notice that Edwards David Jonathan is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Carmarthen East and Dinefwr constituency.
So Jonathan Edwards will be returning to Parliament. He's represented the seat since 2010, father of 3, and the spokesperson for Plaid Cymru on the Treasury, Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. There we are. It's very tight.
Because
very
the
tight.
Leave vote was actually bigger. Laura, you
Yeah,
were
a
pointing
majority
that
of
out.
1,809.
I was making the point that this was a Remain alliance seat, of course, but if there'd been a Leave alliance, then they could have pinched this seat from Plaid Cymru if you look at the vote that the Tories and Brexit
another key
had
seat.
together.
Let's go to Bridgend.
Officer at the election held on the 12th of December 2019 do hereby give notice that
Yr wyf fi, Mark Shepherd, sef y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn yr etholiad y gynhaliwyd ar y 12fed Rhagfyr 2019 yn hysbysu drwy hyn fod
the number of ballot papers rejected was as follows. Voting for more than one candidate, 23.
Yr oedd nifer y papurau pleidleisio ar thodwyd fel y ganlyn. Pleidleisio dros fwy ymgeiswyr nag y ganiateid, 23.
Being unmarked or wholly void for uncertainty, 78.
Heb ei farcio na'n hollol anilys oherwydd ansicrwydd, 78.
The total rejected, 101.
Cyfanswm ar wrthodwyd, 101.
The number of votes recorded for each candidate is as follows. Alex Harris, the Green Party, 815.
Yr oedd nifer y pleidleisiau fyfyriwyd dros bob un o'r ymgeiswyr fel y ganlyn.
Elizabeth Leanne Lewis, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 2013.
Alex Harris, 815. Leanne Lewis, the Party of Wales, 2013.
Madeleine Moon, Welsh Labour, 17,036.
Madeleine Moon, Llafur Cymru, 17,036.
Robert Morgan, the Brexit Party, 1,811.
Robert Morgan, the Brexit Party, 1,811.
Jonathan Edward Pratt, Welsh Liberal Democrats, 2,368.
Jonathan Edward Pratt, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru, 2,368.
Jamie Wallace, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 18,193.
Jamie Wallace, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 19,193.
And I do by here declare that Jamie Wallace is duly elected for the Bridgend constituency.
Well, there we are then. Jamie Wallace takes the seat from Labour. Bridgend, it's an interesting game, that one. A majority of 1,157, that is big news. 18,193 votes for the Conservatives in Bridgend. And the share very close, 43% for the Conservatives, Labour on 40. And the change since last time, the Conservatives are up 3% and Labour is down 10%. This is the constituency of the Ford factory, of the former First Minister, Carwyn Jones, and the swing from Labour to the Conservatives is 6.8%. Felicity, this is a big one.
This is a big one. You know, Bridgend is one of those seats that we've talked about in successive elections as one that could wobble, a bit like Wrexham in the northeast, really. And it never has. It never has gone blue. It's been Labour since 1987. As you say, it's a significant seat as well because in the Assembly it was held by the former leader of Welsh Labour and First Minister, Carwyn Jones. But Laura, you know it probably better than most because you hail from that neck of the woods.
I do. One of the seats that I thought would be vulnerable should we have this kind of swing to the Conservatives. Madeleine Moon, a veteran MP. Yeah. Most people expected her to stand down at this election, but she gave it another go. It hasn't worked out for her. But, you know, the demographics of a town like Bridgend and a constituency where most people commute to Cardiff and Swansea, a strong Leave vote there, you know, you can see the pieces of the jigsaw really coming together to make this a seat that the Conservatives have won relatively easily in the end.
OK, I'd like to welcome Eirfil ap Gwilym. How can I describe you? Plaid Cymru's economic guru, advisor? Member, right. Is it a good night for Plaid Cymru?
Well, thinking about this several days ago, I thought what would be the most likely outcome for Plaid Cymru? What would we be not happy with, but content with? And I thought, well, if we retained our 4 seats, given that 2 of them were held by minute majorities, then we would have done not too badly in what has been a very difficult election.
Yeah, it's not ambitious though, is it? I mean, that's not ambitious, is it?
Because, not being realistic.
Yeah, but surely now is the time to make gains, wasn't it? And you've failed to make a breakthrough in Ynys-Môn.
Yes, I'm very disappointed with Ynys-Môn. We had an excellent candidate, but you know, Ynys-Món's got quite an interesting history. I can say this, I come from Ceredigion, which has an interesting history as well. I can remember when Keith Best, I think he came from Brighton, I think, and suddenly turned up from nowhere. And I think he beat Elliston Morgan, if I recall, who was a very strong Labour candidate, very strong candidate, Elliston, who went on to a distinguished political career.
What do you think, you know, what's been wrong with the campaign? Or was this, you know, the high watermark for you? Is this it as good as it gets?
I wouldn't say it's a high watermark, because I think one of the things, we'll have to reflect on this, of course, but this is quite dramatic change. The fluidity, Laura was saying about how people are taking steps from one party to another. Very often it's a big decision for them. So I think, you know, there's going to be a great state of flux in the future. But I mean, what we need to concentrate now, I think, very quickly is on the future steps. What's going to happen now in Parliament? The withdrawal bill will clearly get through fairly quickly. I hope enough time will be allowed for a proper committee stage, because before the Conservative government wanted to ram it through in a couple of days, and it's an important bill to go through properly. Then we've got 6 to 12 months of who knows what's going to happen. I think what we'll be focusing on, for instance, in Wales, we should be in Wales and our MPs will be, is looking at the fallout from Brexit, because there's going to be very severe fallout, and therefore things like, you know, for instance, the government's spoken about a shared prosperity fund, but we've been given no details so far, and that was promised months ago. So there's that sort of mechanical thing, which is very important in terms of funding, agriculture and so on. So I think now we need to get on with those things.
Okay, we're just going to hear the result, the Foreign Secretary in Esher and Walton, Dominic Raab. Let's hear what sort of night he's having.
Ashurst, Peter Leonardard, 2,838, 2838. Peter Warren, also known as Baron Badger, 326. 326. Harding Monica Bernadette Ethelreda, 28,389. 28389. Keynes Kylie, 347. 347. Rob Dominic Rennie, 31,132. 31132. Taylor Kyle Gregory 5252. And I therefore declare that Dominic René Raab is duly elected to serve as the Member of Parliament for the Esher and Walton constituency. I further declare that the number of ballot papers rejected were as follows: want of an official mark 25, voting for more than one candidate 17, writing or mark which the voter could be identified 1.
So Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, hanging on healthily in Esher and Walton, and of course there'd been a concerted effort for a tactical effort really to unseat him in a highly Remain area. Parties had come together, and there was some question, would that be the big Portillo moment of this election? But clearly not, given the narrative of this evening. The Foreign Secretary returning to Parliament with a healthy result there. Yeah, I mean, these Portillo moments just aren't happening, and they're not going to happen, are they?
No.
No?
I mean, the trends are quite clear, aren't they?
Yeah.
And not wholly surprising. I mean, I didn't foresee how the majority would work out. But I mean, the Conservatives have had a highly effective campaign under Boris Johnson. Let's recognise that. A very simple slogan, a fairly vacuous, empty manifesto, not many commitments, which gives him a very strong position to be in.
Yeah, and you say that's a highly effective. Is that what campaigning is all about now? A vacuous slogan?
Well, unfortunately, this campaign I found this campaign overall quite depressing, frankly, and I think a lot of people did. So you had that on the one side, a highly effective campaign, and on the other hand, of course, you had the Labour Party all over the place on the biggest issue of the day, Brexit. And I mean, people don't like that. They were looking for leadership.
And what about your campaign? I mean, everybody's looking for 3 words now, aren't they? Take back control, get Brexit done. Yours was Cymru, it's us? Wales, it's us?
That's right, yep.
I mean, it didn't really take off, did it?
Well, I think one of the challenges we have, of course, in Wales, in a UK general election, 2 things. Clearly, Plaid Cymru is not going to form the government. That's the first thing, you know, and that's obvious. We don't like the Lib Dems, we're not like the Lib Dems claiming we will. We know we're not going to. Also, and it's not blaming this, if you look at the structure of the media in Wales, so much of the campaigning information flows from London. And therefore we get squeezed out in that sense. Or people do think very often, I found this on the doorstep, that, well, the general election is what they call the big one. You know, and therefore they'll vote one way in the UK general election and a different way for the National Assembly. And of course, we've got more than half our eyes on 2021.
Well, but that's true, Edward, isn't it? But, you know, elections are about momentum as well. And I think, you know, whilst Plaid will be happy to have come out of this election with the 4 seats
not happy, content, maybe. You
yeah,
know,
okay, well, you know, it could have been a lot worse, of course.
Oh, could
you know,
have been,
certainly relieved.
Relieved,
probably agree on that.
But you know, you've got so little time until the next Assembly elections, in effect. You know, it's a year of campaigning, really, and momentum is everything, isn't it? And you can see what will happen in Scotland in the next year with the results going that way. But you just don't get any sense that Adam Price's profile in this election has translated into any real material gains. I mean, it might in the future, but it hasn't in this election.
Well, I think we were regarding this election in that sense with Adam Price as investing in building up his profile, and it's certainly done that. And I've been struck by a number of people, for instance, the business community in Cardiff have come up to me, and I think they're telling me the truth. They said they've decided to vote Plaid Cymru because of Adam Price. And therefore he's created a very good impression this time. But of course he wasn't a candidate, and therefore, you know, that's a factor. But I think we're building him up.
And, you know, I see that as the strategy. He's a relatively new leader. This is a perfect platform for you to introduce him, particularly to voters who tend to consume London-based news, because he's on, you know, all the big debates and everything. What I wonder about for the 2021 elections for Plaid is these Valleys seats that you really need to win if you want to form the next government. These are leave voting seats, and we're seeing tonight how strongly Brexit and the leave vote is organising itself. And you're hoping, I presume, that by, in 18 months' time, people will have forgotten
Brexit will be done.
That you were such an ardent Remainer party, and that Brexit will be the awkward thing that you don't talk about anymore.
We need to go, Fliss, we need to go to Ceredigion. We were talking about an ultra-marginal there for Plaid Cymru, and there they are on the stage. Ben Lake on the right, he'll be hoping to hang on, and Mark Williams, who's also been an MP once again. We've got 2 former MPs up against each other, fighting for Ceredigion. And Eirfil, what is your intelligence on this one?
Well, we hope Ben Lake.
I know you hope.
Well, a little bit more than that. I was up in Ceredigion,
Yeah.
and all I could say, if the placards had a vote, it would definitely be Ben Lake.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to read the body language there.
Well, Ben is a very modest person, you see, and that's why he's looking like that, I hope.
People have been predicting the Lib Dems to come third, haven't they? Which would be a very interesting turnaround.
And this isn't a Remain seat, a Remain packed seat.
No.
I mean, the Lib Dems didn't take it.
And also, you know, we've been hearing over the last few days of the election that what the Lib Dems have been doing actually is sending all their resources to try to shore up Brecon and Radnorshire. And, you know, a lot of people in Ceredigion have been saying, you know, they haven't actually seen the Lib Dems pounding the pavements in the ground war and that sort of thing. And indeed, it would appear that, so far as Brecon and Radnorshire is concerned, that may well have been a futile attempt to shore up defences so far as the Lib Dems are concerned, because the mood music in BNR is not looking good for them, and they face wipeout in Wales.
Yeah, not a great night for the Lib Dems. Certainly, the people who really started this campaign saying, you know, we will be Prime Minister. That was you know, we will form the government. Yeah, so we're still waiting for Ceredigion. There's no movement there. Delyn too, we're hearing that Delyn is imminent. Let's have a look. Are they about to declare?
I, Colin Everett, being the acting returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows.
Fi, Colin Everett, sef y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn y etholiad uchod drwy hyn, yn datgan fod nifer y pleidleisiau a gofnodwyd ar gyfer pob ymgeisydd yn y etholiad yma fel a ganlyn.
Hanson, David George, Welsh Labour, 15,891 votes, 15891.
Hanson, David George, Llafur Cymru, 15,891.
Parkhurst Andrew John, Welsh Liberal Democrats to stop Brexit, 2,346 votes, 2346.
Parkhurst Andrew John, Democratiaeth Rhyddfrydol Cymru I stopio Brexit, 2,346.
Robert Joseph, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 16,756. 16756.
Robert Joseph, ymgeisydd Plaid Gwaedwadol Cymru, 16,756.
Rowlinson Paul John, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 1,406, 1406.
Rowlinson Paul John, Plaid Cymru, 1,406.
Williams Nigel, Brexit Party, 1,971, votes 1971.
Williams Nigel, Party Brexit, 1,971.
The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows.
Oedd nifer y papurau pleidleisio a wrthwodwyd fel a ganlyn.
Want of an official mark, 0.
Absenoldeb nod swyddogol, dim.
Voting for more than one candidate, 18.
Pleidleisio dros fwy nag un ymgeisydd,
So there we are,
18.
Delyn, going from the Labour Party to the Conservatives. David Hanson, a former minister, a former Home Office minister, no longer representing Delyn, and there is the new MP, Rob Roberts. And we're hearing that Ceredigion is about to declare. Shall we go to Ceredigion?
Wel, gyfellion, diolch yn fawr iawn am eich ymynedd. Mae'n braf gen I gyflwyno felly canlyniadau chi. Rwy fi, Eifion Evans, sef y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn y bleidlais I ethol aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Ceredigion a gynhaliwyd ar y 12 o Rhagfyr 2015 yn ysbysu drwy hyn fod nifer y pleidleisiau fwriwyd dros bob un o'r ymgeiswyr yn yr etholiad fel a ganlyn. I, Eifion Evans, being the acting returning officer of the election of a Member of Parliament for Ceredigion constituency held on the 12th of December 2019, hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows. James Gethin Brexit Party, 2063, 2063. Jenna Amanda Jane, ymgeisydd Plaid Gydwadol Cymru, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 8,879, 8,879. Lake Ben Morgan, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 15,208, 15,208. Mulholland, Dinah, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 6,317, 6,317. Simpson Chris, Green Party, Plaid Werdd, 663, 663. Williams Mark Fraser, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru, Welsh Liberal Democrats, 6,975, 6,975. Roedd y nifer y papurau pleidleisio a wrthodwyd fel y ganlyn. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows. Heb farc swyddogol, want of an official mark, none. Pleidleisio dros fwy nag un ymgeisydd, voting for more than one candidate, 30. Ysgrifen neu farc a gellid adnabod y pleidleisio wrthynt, writing on a mark which the voter could identify, dim heb farc neu ddi-rym oherwydd ansicrwydd, being unmarked or void for uncertainty, 87, 87. Cyfanswm, 117, 117. Ac yr wyf yn datgan drwy hyn fod, and I hereby declare that the said Ben Morgan Lake wedi ei ethol yn briodol yn aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Ceredigion. Ben Morgan Lake is duly elected as Member of Parliament for the Ceredigion constituency.
Well, there we are. Ben Lake returning as the MP with a much increased majority there, up to 6,329 from, what was it, 104?
It's pretty hefty, right?
Any talk of a marginal, there we go. Plaid Cymru on 38%, Conservatives on 22%, and the Lib Dems on 17%, and they were really hopeful in Ceredigion. The Labour Party on 16%. Let's look at the change then. It is Plaid Cymru up 9%, the Conservatives up 4%, the Lib Dems down 12%, Labour down 4%, the Brexit Party up 5%, the Greens staying steady, and it's a swing from the Conservatives to Plaid Cymru of 2.5%. So he was Plaid Cymru's youngest ever MP, still is, and he entered Parliament at 24 years old, and he's, well, you're the mathematician. What sort of rise in the majority is that?
Well, he was far too clever for me there, but I mean, I'm really pleased for Ben. I mean, I worked with him when he was working in the Senedd with us, and a very young, modest, able person. It was terrific, and I know that as a son of Cardiganshire myself, Ceredigion these days, he goes down very well there because he understands the constituency extremely well. Hard-working, but able as well.
So you're piling on the votes in places where you already are. This isn't good enough, is it, in terms of breakthrough?
No, I accept that. But let's pile on the votes where we can, first of all. Let's establish our reputation. Let's move out from there. You know, undoubtedly, someone like Ynys Môn today is a disappointment for us, and we would have liked to have done better. But, you know, there are these very complex factors now going on in the constituencies.
Let's hear from Jeremy Corbyn. I think he's been making a speech in Islington North. Let's have a listen to the leader of the Labour Party. A difficult night for Jeremy Corbyn. Let's hear his victory speech. Of course, he's held that seat. No great surprise there, but let's see what the Labour leader makes of tonight so far.
Could I start by saying a huge thank you to the returning officer and all the staff and the police that have ensured a fair and democratic election has taken place today, and also to congratulate and thank my fellow candidates for their participation in this election. And also a very heartfelt thanks to the people of Islington North for electing me again for the 10th time to represent Islington North in Parliament. I'm very, very proud to do so, and I've learnt so much from the people of Islington North, and it's my pride and my pleasure to continue to be their representative in Parliament. I also want to thank Ruth Hayes, our agent for this election, and all of the wonderful friends, comrades and supporters in Islington North Labour Party for the huge effort they've put in this election campaign, and they put in all the time to carry a message of hope and justice all over our constituency, and through me, I hope, to a wider world. The pressure on those surrounding politicians is often very, very high indeed. The media intrusion on people's lives is very high indeed. And the attacks that take place against family and loved ones of politicians continue, and they're disgraceful, and frankly, they are disgusting. I want to take this opportunity to thank my family, my close friends, and those that have been close by and been very supportive during this and every other election campaign. I want to thank my 3 sons for the huge support they give me, and thank my wife, Laura Alvarez, for all that she puts up with because of the way in which the media behave towards me, towards her, and indeed towards my party during this election campaign. And this is obviously a very disappointing night for the Labour Party with the result that we've got. But I want to say this. In the election campaign, we put forward a manifesto of hope, a manifesto of unity, and a manifesto that would help to right the wrongs and the injustices and inequalities that exist in this country. For those who need housing, those who need an effective health service that will deliver for them, and those children that need a school that is properly funded and they're not being taught in oversized classes. And a manifesto that gave hope in dealing with the environmental crisis the world faces by investing for the future through a green industrial revolution. All of those policies were extremely popular during the election campaign and remain policies that have huge popular support all across this country. However, Brexit,
the Labour leader there, Jeremy Corbyn, because we need to go to Montgomeryshire.
Swyddog canlyniadau yn etholiad aelod seneddol dros etholiaeth Sir Drefaldwyn a ganhalwyd ar y 12fed o Ragfyr 2019, drwy hyn yn hysbysu bod nifer y pleidleisiau a gofnodwyd I bob ymgeiswydd yn y dywedig etholiad fel y ganlyn. Kishan Rajesh Devani, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru, 7,882, 7,882. Catherine Alexander Durden, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 5,585. 5,585. Gwyn Wigley Evans, Gwlad Gwlad, 727. 727. Alan Craig Williams, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 20,020. 20,020. The total number of ballot papers rejected was 213. Cyfanswm nifer y papurau pleidleisio a wrthodwyd oedd 213. Ac yr wyf yn datgan hyn yn bod y dywydedig Alun Craig Williams wedi ei iawn ethol dros y dywydedig etholiaeth. And I do hereby declare that Alun Craig Williams is duly elected Member of Parliament for the said constituency.
So Montgomeryshire, a Conservative hold, and Craig Williams, who was an MP, now returning after Glyn Davis standing down. And the Lib Dems in second place. If we look at the share of the vote in Montgomeryshire, the Conservatives on 59%, the Lib Dems on 23%, Labour on 16%, and let's just look at the change.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise here, given the trend of the night, to see the Conservatives holding on in Montgomeryshire. There's always an element of volatility, of course, when the incumbent stands down, as Glyn Davis has done here. And as you say, Craig Williams, the victor, he's a former MP. Of course, he was the MP for Cardiff North, lost it in 2017. I remember sitting on that sofa where Sarah is. Craig Williams was there looking very glum. He'll be feeling very different tonight, because this is a very different election.
It is very different. And Jeremy Corbyn, we heard the beginning of this speech, we cut out to see Montgomeryshire, but then he went on to say that he will not lead Labour in the next general election. Now, what that actually means in terms of the near future...
That's 5 years' time.
We don't know. But there we are. The discussion is well underway. We also heard that Sedgefield, Tony Blair's old seat has gone, and Nigel Dodds, a prominent figure in the DUP, the parliamentary leader, has lost his seat as well. So Don Valley has also gone. So it is a big night of big results. Let's look at Aberconwy. Guto Bebb, who was an independent, left the Conservative whip and not standing. Aberconwy there. Robin Miller is the new MP for Aberconwy, and Labour in second place, majority of 2,034 for Robin Miller. And let's go to Monmouth. We'll get the result there and we'll get back to Aberconwy.
The number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Chandler, Ian Roy, Wales Green Party, 1,353. Davis, David Thomas Charles, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 26,160. Ford, Martin, Independent, 435. Coken, Hugh Michael Andrew, Plaid Cymru, 1,182. Murphy, Yvonne Clare, Welsh Labour, 16,178. Willett, Alison Leyland, Liberal Democrats, 4,909. I now invite my colleague Alan Burkitt to make the same announcement in Welsh.
Stays on as the MP for Monmouth. Let's go to Brecon and Radnorshire for the result there.
I, David Lloyd Peat, being the returning officer at the election of a Member of Parliament for the Brecon and Radnorshire constituency, held on the 12th of December 2019, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Yr wyf fi, David Lloyd Peat, swyddog canlyniadau yn etholiaeth aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Sir Frycheiniog a Maesyfed, a ganhalwyd ar y 12fed o Ragfyr 2019, drwy hyn yn hysbysu bod nifer y pleidleisiau a gyfnodwyd i bob ymgeisydd yn y dywediedig etholiad fel a ganlyn. Thomas Glyndwr Davis, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 3,944, 3,944. Jane Dodds, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru, 14,827, 14,827. Jeff David Green, Welsh Christian Party, proclaiming Christ's Lordship, Plaid Gristnogol Cymru, datgan arglwyddiaeth Christ, 245, 245. Faye Alicia Jones, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 1,958, 21,900. $21,958. Lady Lily the Pink, Bernice Benton, the official monster raving loony party, 345, 345. The total number of ballot papers rejected was 110. Cyfanswm nifer y papurau pleidleisio a wrthodwyd oedd 110. Ac yr drwy hyn yn datgan bod y dywededig Faye Alicia Jones wedi ei iawn ethol dros y dywededig etholiaeth.
Conservatives taking Brecon and Radnorshire. Let's hear from the Prime Minister in his seat of Uxbridge and South Ruislip.
It does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done. And not just to get Brexit done, but to unite this country and to take it forward and to focus on the priorities of the British people and above all on the NHS. And yes, we will recruit 50,000 more nurses and 6,000 more GPs, and we will build 40 new hospitals. And I'm proud to say that one of those across the country, and one of those hospitals will be right here in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. And I'm grateful once again to the people of Uxbridge and South Ruislip for returning me to serve you. It is an absolute privilege to do this job and to work for you. And I thank once again the police, the council, everybody who's worked so hard all night to count for us, the returning officers. I thank my fellow candidates in all their glory, Lord Buckethead and others, Elmo and others. Forgive me if I don't identify them all. But above all, I want to thank the people of this country for turning out to vote in a December election that we didn't want to call, but which I think has turned out to be a historic election that gives us now, in this new government, the chance to respect the democratic will of the British people, to change this country for the better, and to unleash the potential of the entire people of this country. And that is what we will now do, and if we are lucky enough to be returned, as the exit polls seem to suggest, then that work will begin tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Or rather, I should say not tomorrow, today. Today. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
So Boris Johnson, Powerful new mandate and focusing on, yeah, we'll get Brexit done, but yes, we will focus on the domestic issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to do a quick sum of where we are and in Wales in terms of the seats that have declared, Beth, just to sort of take stock, because we've had a real tranche of results coming through thick and fast, haven't we? So we've got the Conservatives on 12 seats at the moment. Do you need me to stop talking? You're giving me that look.
I'm giving you that look, only because Jo Swinson, and I'm being told... let's go and see if Jo Swinson survives.
221. Pam Gozal, Scottish Conservative and Unionist, 7,455. David Murdo-MacLeod, UK Independence Party, UKIP, 208. Liam McKechnie, Scottish Family Party, 197. Callum McNally, Scottish Labour Party, 4,839. Carolyn Scrimger, Scottish Green Party, 916. Jo Swinson, Scottish Liberal Democrats, 19,523. And I declare that Amy Callaghan is elected to serve in the United Kingdom Parliament as the member for the Eastern Bartonshire County constituency.
Well, there we are then. That is the Portillo moment of this evening. Jo Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, who started this campaign saying she would like to be Prime Minister, is now not returning to Westminster. Amy Callaghan for the SNP taking Dunbartonshire East for the SNP at 19,672 with a very slim majority of 149. Jo Swinson has lost her parliamentary seat. That's how close it is. SNP at 37.1%. The Lib Dems on 36.8%.
Wow, 0.3% in it. That puts the tin hat on a terrible night for the Liberal Democrats.
It's hard to imagine a worse campaign, isn't it, for a Lib Dem leader and for a party as a whole. You know, to lose your leader, to be wiped out in Scotland and in Wales,
wiped out
and not
in Wales.
to make any significant progress in England. It's hard to imagine when they were supporting the call for a general election that anyone could have imagined it would be this bad.
Yeah, and just a quick look at the swing there. It's from the Lib Dems to the SNP, 5.3%. And presumably it was all down to that strategy of going for revoke. Let's cancel Brexit, just people didn't like it.
Well, I mean, I think in fairness, you know, there's a slightly different dimension in Scotland, isn't there? We're going to see swings like that to the SNP in lots of areas, whether they're contesting a marginal against a Lib Dem, a Conservative or a Labour voter. But in the rest of the UK, I think the revoke strategy has served them ill.
OK. I think we can speak to the First Minister of Wales, Mark Drakeford. No, not quite. I don't think
shortly, but just to pick up while we're waiting.
Can you hear me, Mr Drakeford? Oh, he was there, but...
just to pick up on the Lib Dems.
He can hear, yeah. Let's... sorry, Fliss.
Right.
He can hear, there we are.
Beth, and I'm hearing you and quite a lot of other
I'm
voices
sorry about
as well,
that.
so
yeah, I'm sorry about that. But if we can try... can you hear me? Are you OK if I say how bad an evening are you having?
Well, we're having a very deeply disappointing evening across the United Kingdom and, of course, here in Wales. But at the end of the evening, I believe that the Labour Party will still have more than half the seats here in Wales. Fewer than we would have liked, with some real disappointments. But nevertheless, more than half the seats in Wales will belong to the Labour Party.
Yeah, the BBC is now predicting that 21 seats for the Labour Party in Wales. But something has gone badly wrong here. What do you think it is for the Labour Party?
I think we struggled in some parts of Wales to get our message through to people about the dangers faced by a 5-year Boris Johnson-led government, of the impact that will have on deepening poverty still further, on the assault on our public services, on its unwillingness to take climate change seriously. Somehow we didn't get the cut through with those messages, and to persuade sufficient people to support a different future one based on hope, one where things could be different.
And that didn't work, clearly. It doesn't seem to be working. And do you take full responsibility for that failure in Wales? Or would you say, well, your people in London, your leader in London, was no help at all?
Well, it's a shared responsibility, Beth. And I said right in the very beginning of this campaign, when I was asked, is this a Welsh Labour campaign, is it a UK campaign? I said it's a Labour campaign. We're working together on it. And that means there's got to be a shared responsibility. I certainly take my part of it here in Wales. We will need to work very hard over the weeks and months ahead to think about how we can repair our relationship with some parts and some communities of Wales, how we can communicate our message more successfully in the future. We will be working hard on that here in Wales, and there'll be a national effort as well.
And Jeremy Corbyn this evening, in his speech, said he will not lead the party into the next election. Presumably you think he's right to consider his position and to stand down?
I think that was inevitable, given the events of tonight. For me, it has always been the agenda that Mr Corbyn has developed that has been important, an agenda that demonstrates that the future can be different, that we can have public services here in Wales and in the United Kingdom that put us in the European mainstream, that things can be different. And that's what we will want to make sure that we preserve into the future.
And you are a supporter of Mr Corbyn and the way where he was taking the party. It clearly hasn't worked. So you say you're repeating that agenda as if you will just carry on the same path. We've had several MPs, Chris Bryant, Stephen Kinnock, saying that a lot of soul searching needs to happen now, and you really need to consider a different path. Is that how you see it?
Well, I certainly think that there is a lot of soul-searching to do, but I also believe that the core Labour message, that we are on the side of the many, not the few, that we are on the side of those people who don't get a fair share in life rather than those who have more than they will ever need to do with, that we are serious about the impact of climate change and the need to do something urgent about it. I still think that will form the core of a Labour message and a Labour offer, but how we get that over and how we calibrate it so that it makes sure that people understand it and respond to it, of course there's soul-searching to be done about that.
And on Brexit, do you now accept it will happen? And are you going to change your messaging in terms of making it work rather than opposing it?
Well, I think you're right that Brexit will now happen. The job of the Welsh Government will be to make sure that the adverse impacts of Brexit are mitigated as far as possible, that we work with businesses, public services, to make sure that we represent their views and their priorities in all our discussions with the new UK government, speaking up for Wales, standing up for Wales, as we always do.
And just before you go, Mr Drakeford, of course, this is a big election, but the big one for Welsh Labour and here in Wales is yet to come. It's coming very soon in the Assembly. Will you be offering more of the same, or is this result tonight going to make you rethink?
Well, we will be offering a distinctively Welsh Labour agenda because that will be a Welsh general election. People in Wales will need a Labour government in the Assembly even more after 2021. This will be the first time in devolution that we have faced a majority Conservative government at the other end of the M4, and a Labour government here in Wales standing up for the people of Wales will be even more necessary after 2021 than it has been in the first 20 years of devolution.
And do nights like this make you consider, you know, do I really need this now? Disappointing, catastrophic results. I'm leading a party which is on the slide in Wales. I could just do something else.
Well, I'll carry on doing the job I do for the reasons that I've always done it. But I believe that the public service that we are able to offer, that the values that we are able to put into practice at the National Assembly, where decisions about things that happen only in Wales are only in the hands of Welsh people, goes on being absolutely important. I'll be there playing my part, campaigning hard, putting that case, making sure that after May 2021, there is a Labour government here in Wales that goes on standing up for the things that matter the most to Welsh people.
Thank you very much. Mark Drakeford, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope the sound issues did disappear. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, who is taking responsibility for this difficult night for Labour?
You know, you heard Mark Drakeford there saying he thinks there's a shared responsibility that... And you heard him really sum up the approach, the strategy there, when he refers to the start of the campaign. And when he was asked at the start of the campaign, you know, is this a Welsh Labour campaign or a Labour campaign, a UK Labour campaign? And he said, it's a Labour campaign. And I think that is an approach that in the post-mortem, you know, will be excavated
so we
to
could
the
see
nth degree.
Divergent.
Keep talking. Need to look at Welsh Labour's, so-called Welsh Labour's manifesto. It was clearly a cut and paste job from the UK one. Welsh Labour, bizarrely, was promising 100 billion of additional funding to Scotland, was silent in the case of Wales. Welsh Labour was making more commitments to Scotland, specific commitments, than it was to Wales. I mean, what sort of party is that? That's just sticking a label on what was basically a London-based Labour manifesto.
Results are still coming in. I want to take you to the results in Blaenau Gwent. If we can look at that, Nick Smith retaining Blaenau Gwent for the Labour Party, 14,862. And the Brexit Party coming second.
Yeah,
now that's interesting.
This is interesting and significant because the Brexit Party were really throwing everything into Blaenau Gwent and trying to capitalise on Leave voter frustration. Of course, the Leave vote very big in Blaenau Gwent in 2016 referendum, and really trying to maximise that and capitalise on what they described as anti-Labour feeling within the constituency because of frustrations over the Brexit vote and over Jeremy Corbyn's leadership.
And interestingly, isn't it? This is a seat where there's always been a strong protest against Labour vote recently, because Plaid benefited from this in recent elections, and in some senses this should be encouraging to Plaid actually, because if this you know, a fifth of the vote is going to the Brexit Party at this point, if progress is made on Brexit next year, by the time of the Assembly elections, they'll be looking for a home for that vote. And it could go to Plaid if Plaid gets itself in a good shape to capture some of that. And
yeah, the swing in Blaenau Gwent is pretty significant. Look at that, 15% swing from Labour to the Brexit Party. By the way, we're hearing of another Portillo moment. Laura Pidcock, a big name in Labour, has lost her seat. Durham North West, a big Corbyn
tipped as a
ally.
future leader.
Yeah, could have been a future leader.
And by the way, we wrote off the Lib Dems too quickly in Scotland because they captured that ultra-marginal of North East Fife from the SNP.
Was that the two votes?
Two votes. So they're not completely wiped out in Scotland. I was being unfair.
Some consolation on a terrible night for them then.
We'll take a quick look at, I don't think we've seen the results in Neath. If we look at that, Christina Rees holding on in Neath, the Shadow Secretary of State for Wales, of course. Conservatives in second place, Plaid Cymru coming third, a majority of 5,637. And if we look at the share, Labour on 43, the Conservatives on 21, Plaid Cymru on 12, the Brexit Party on 9%, and the Lib Dems on 4, Greens on 2. And the swing in Neath, Labour to Conservatives of 8.8%. Is the swing. Now, I think it's time that we checked in with Sarah and the politicians before they drop off.
There's a very happy Mark Reckless over here. I mean, Mark, 15% swing, that's better than you could have dreamed of, isn't it?
I was pleased to see Richard Taylor challenging Labour in Blaenau Gwent. Richard's a fantastic candidate. I hope he'll also stand for us in the Assembly elections for Blaenau Gwent, and I'm sure we won't be seeing the Conservatives getting 19% of the vote.
I'm going to have to leave you there. We're going to Preseli, Pembrokeshire.
Datgan canlyniad y bleidlais. I, Ian Westley, being the acting returning officer at the election of Member of Parliament for the Preseli Pembrokeshire constituency held on the 12th of December 2019, hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows. Yr o'i fi, Ian Wesley, sef y swyddog cynlidiadau gweithredol a'n etholiad aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Preseli Sir Benfro ar o'i 12 o Ragfyr 2019 yn ysbysu drwy hyn fod nifer y pleidleisiau a ffwriad dros bob un o'r ymgeiswyr yn yr etholiad fel y ganlyn. Crab Stephen, Welsh Conservative candidate, ymgeisydd plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 21,381, 1,381. Hughes Thomas James, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaid Rhydfrydol Cymru, 1,943, 1,943. Thompson Philippa Ann, Welsh Labour, Llavier Cymru, 16,319, 1,319. Thomas Christopher Wynne, known as Chris, adnabyddia fel Chris, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 2,776, 2,776. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows. Yr oedd nifer y papurau pleidleisio ar athodwyd fel y ganlyn. Want of an official mark, 0. Heb noed swyddogol, dim. Voting for more candidates than voter was entitled to, 34. Pleidleisio dros ragor o ymgeiswyr nad y ganiadaid i'r pleidleisiwr 34. Writing or mark by which a voter can be identified, 0. Ysgrifen neu nod a gellid abnabod pleidleisiwr o thont, dim. Being marked or wholly void for uncertainty, 119. Heb ei facio neu'n hollol anilys o heroed and sicroed 119. Total 153. Cyfanswm 153. And I hereby declare that the said Stephen Crab, ac yr oeth yn datgan drwy hyn fod Stephen Crab, is duly elected as Member of Parliament for the Preseli Pembrokeshire constituency, wedi ei ethol yn briodol yn aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Preseli Sir Benfro. Diolch yn fawr.
So Stephen Crab returns to Westminster there. Let's continue our conversation with Mark Reckless. So 15% it was, you know, your success, if you like, in Blaen y Gwent. Generally, though, across Wales, it's been more like 6%. So why do you think you had such traction in Blaen y Gwent?
Partly we had a fantastic local candidate in Richard Taylor. Partly we focused on that area. And partly I just think people in Blaen y Gwent have been taken for granted by Labour for so long. And I think both the MP and the AM have done that. And hence we saw Plaid almost take the seat last time. And now it's the Brexit Party which is the main challenger to Labour in Blaen y Gwent.
Yeah, Helen, why do you think that your role as the sort of anti-Labour vote in Blaen y Gwent has been replaced by Brexit?
This is a very British election. I think Laura McAllister has been making the comment that in some seats it's easier for people to move their vote perhaps to the Brexit Party than it is to go the whole hog and move it to the Conservatives. I certainly don't think we should take any of tonight's results as predictions as to what's necessarily going to happen in a National Assembly election. We know that people vote differently in those circumstances. I'm content with what we've done tonight. I'm very, very pleased about Ben Lake's result. This was always going to be a very, very British election. We were always going to get squeezed, and we've held our ground, and I think we can be pleased about that.
But you've been working that constituency as well. Michelle, do you think that because you were so much of a Remain party, that was a problem for you in Blaenau Gwent?
I think it might have been, but compared to what being a Remain party delivered for us in Ceredigion, I think, you know, in a very un-Welsh, very British, very presidential, you know, do you want Corbyn or do you want Boris Johnson election? I think we've done very well to hold our own. I think that Adam Price has used this platform really effectively for us to raise his profile and to begin to get our positive messages across. I think people will very quickly get fed up. Both with a Welsh Labour Party, which, if we listen to Mark Drakeford, is saying that nothing's wrong and we'll keep calm and carry on.
Yeah, but I've been watching your face during the night, and you haven't been pleased when there have been big Conservative wins, whereas Adam Price attacking the Labour Party in Wales might have helped that.
I don't think so. I mean, I think we know what the Labour Party has done, and that's to shoot itself in the foot, if not the head. I mean, if, as I've said before, they've been prepared to cooperate in certain key seats with other progressive pro-Remain parties, they might have been able to be not quite so bad position. They've got to take the can for that, not us.
And Matt, when you started this evening, you weren't exactly bouncing with optimism, and it's been getting worse and worse by every half hour. I mean, Bridgend.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough series of results that was predicted by the exit poll, and nothing that's happened since has got any better for the party, really.
Also, you know, people like David Hanson go.
Yeah, that slew of North Wales seats, all going by, you know, fairly small majorities, but going all the same.
But a man with a lawyer who'd been there a long time with,
absolutely,
law
and a
support.
fantastic campaigner, and you know, losing people like Chris Ruan, who came back, bounced back, as the way that only a Tigger like Chris can do, to win that seat in 2017. Hugely disappointing to see those people go. The challenge now for the party is, you know, where do we go from here? And if I was a Labour strategist now, as I was once, I would be knocking on the door of Tonia Antonazzi and said, what did you do right that we did wrong? You know,
and you try and learn from her. I mean,
absolutely.
we heard her passion earlier.
You could see the passion coming through. You know, she was angry, and you know, I'm rightly angry because you know, we heard at the start of this programme about, you know, 3 years of nothingness and 3 years of mayhem. Well, you know, if you think the last 3 years were bad, wait until you see what the next 3 years is going to look like for the Welsh economy. Wait and see the next 3 years is going to look like for Welsh society. It's going to get worse. And, you know, and unless you build on little beacons of hope like Tonia managed to produce in the Gower, then we're in for a very grim period indeed.
But I mean, Jeremy Corbyn saying he won't stand at the next general election. I mean, there'll be lots of people thinking he shouldn't be there after tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm one of them.
You think he should go now?
Well, what's keeping him really after tonight's results? You know, I thought that Mark Drakeford's address earlier was humble. I thought he showed great humility, and Mark has a great intellect, and I've got absolutely no doubt that he will learn the lessons from this result.
It didn't sound like he was going to radically change things, though.
No, I think he did say that they were going to look very closely at this, and they were deeply disappointed in the results. But I got to be honest, I did not get that sense of humility from Jeremy Corbyn's speech. You know, the guns were aimed at the media immediately. People don't want to hear that. You know, you've got to take responsibility. You know, fair enough that the press might be lined up against Labour. Well, we'll change it. You know, you're the leader of a great political party. Step up, change it. And if you're not going to change it, then let's have a change of leader.
I mean, you know how the Labour Party works. Do you think there's enough people around him to protect him?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's more slow and drawn out than many people would like, I think. But, you know, he said that he's not going to be there for the next election, so, you know...
But that could be a long time. I mean, Lauren, even you were surprised, weren't you?
I've been surprised by how well the Conservatives have done in North East Wales. I thought David Hanson's personal popularity would really bring Dylan home for him, but I'm delighted that the Conservatives have done this well. And I couldn't actually disagree more with... Matthew, about how we deal with seats like Gower. In Gower, we had a Conservative candidate who'd had a colossal screw-up at the beginning of the election campaign, and Tonia was never, ever, ever going to get a bigger gift than that. Unless Welsh Labour begin to look at some of the abject failures in the Assembly, they will never start to take some of these seats back in the North East of Wales.
But what about these seats in North East Wales? You know, is the Conservative Party going to be able to hold on to them, or is this just because it's a Brexit election?
Like I said earlier, the Assembly Group are going to have to work really, really hard to cement this for the Conservative Party in 2021, and I think that there's a huge gap in the market to do so. Labour have run Wales for over 20 years. The education system is still declining. The NHS is poorly managed. If we look up in North Wales, Betsy Cadwaladr has been in special measures for 4 years.
But wasn't this
and
election...
no chance of coming out of it.
But however much the Labour Party tried to make it about other things, this election was about Brexit, wasn't it? That's quite clear.
But it was compounded by Labour failure
like
in this country. It was. I think if the Labour Party don't address that, then they're never going to take some of these seats back.
Mark, what happens to the Brexit Party when we've had Brexit?
Well, I congratulate the Conservatives on the gains that they've had on the basis of Boris saying that he'll deliver on Brexit. I think we will leave the European Union at the end of January, but what then happens, and our concern is either that the Conservatives will extend the transition period or they'll agree a trade deal with the European Union where we make so closely aligned with the EU that it's essentially Brexit in name only. And I think
then we could find the same arguments again about whether it's Brexit enough.
I think if they don't deliver a Brexit and really deliver Brexit, then I think this will be a high point for them tonight. And I think it's very important the Brexit Party is there, that we are on the
so
pitch
you
holding them to account. So you don't think then
that the Conservative Party should celebrate too much today? It's still got its work on.
I think we can allow them their moment of celebration, but I think they need to deliver on Brexit and a proper Brexit, unless this is going to be a temporary high watermark for them.
This does show the fallacy of the slogan, get Brexit done, though, because whatever happens at the end of January, and of course Michel Barnier has been saying he thinks it's very unlikely that we can get even the most basic out by the end of January, but supposing that happens, the real work then starts about what building the long-term relationship is. And I think that those of us who want a positive relationship with the European Union and with our trading partners will have to work hard in the new Parliament to try and ensure that if we are going to have Brexit, it's the least damaging one possible for our farmers, for all the people in Wales who work in manufacturing. This is not good news for them.
It's going to be a huge challenge, actually, just in devolved context for the Assembly now and the Scottish Parliament to have that sort of relationship with a majority Tory government in Westminster to try and hold their feet to the fire on delivering Brexit. You know, up until now, in a hung Parliament situation, you've got a lot more say, a lot more leverage.
Yeah, not much now.
And even then it was tough. But now it's going to be doubly difficult to have that sort of say.
To try and block Brexit. That's why the Labour Party has suffered as it has tonight.
Well, no, they tried to engage. The Welsh Labour government tried to engage for 2 years right at the beginning, alongside Plaid Cymru. They tried to engage, tried to honour that result, but there was nothing forthcoming coming back. But it's going to be much harder now.
Well, thanks very much. Back to Beth.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Before we look at some Welsh results that have come in, just a bit of news from Scotland. It is now looking as if the SNP will have a minimum of 50 seats, which means...
Skinny dipping in Loch Ness.
Yes,
not us, Ruth Davidson.
Maybe one day, Fliss. Sorry.
Oh dear, it's the licorice all sorts.
We've hit the licorice all sorts now. They're not good for us.
Sugar rush.
Anyway, no, to be serious a minute, the former Conservative leader in Scotland said she would go skinny dipping in Loch Ness. You're not looking impressed at this, Eirfil ap Gwilym. If the SNP won 50 seats, and it looks as if they have a minimum. One of the seats, the Labour seats they've taken is that of the Scottish Shadow Secretary. So let's take a quick look at some of the results that have come in Wales while we've been talking. Torfaen. There we go. Nick Thomond-Simmons keeping that seat, 15,546. Conservatives in second place.
And, you know, again, this is one that the Brexit Party was really pushing. Nick Thomond-Simmons, of course, a shadow frontbencher, and obviously never really in doubt. This is one of these Valley seats where the Labour majorities are huge, but again, you know, the Leave voters making a significant dent.
Yeah, and if we look at the change in Torfaen, Labour is down 16%, and he's a high-profile member of the Labour Party, and the Brexit Party taking most of that at 15%.
One thing Farage has got right, isn't it? You know, when he talks about where the Brexit Party was going to gain support, and it's in the valleys, and he's spot on with that. That's exactly where it's happened.
And the swing from Labour to the Conservatives, 8.3%. Let's take a look at Newport East. Jessica Morden returning as the Labour MP for Newport East with 16,125 votes. Conservatives in second place, and they have 39% of the share. Labour on 44%. Brexit Party right down 7%. Lib Dems on 6%. And we look at the change there. Labour down 12, the Conservatives up 4, and the swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 8.1%. I wonder if we can look at Merthyr quickly. Merthyr Tydfil and Rumney. Gerald Jones keeping on to that seat at 16,913. Sarah Jones. Lots of Joneses here.
Yeah, a lot of Joneses.
3 of them.
A trilogy of Joneses.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Labour at 52%, the Conservatives on 20%. Brexit again breaking through here, 11%. The Brexit Party obviously up 11% because they didn't exist before. Conservatives up 1, but Labour down 14, and a swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 7.9%. Cardiff, sorry?
That's been the theme, hasn't it? You know, in these Valley seats, we've seen swings to the Conservatives of between 6 and 8%. I mean, you know, about 7% on average. But...
Yeah. Cardiff South and Penarth, Stephen Doughty, a big Labour name there with 27,382 staying on to represent that seat then in Parliament. Philippa Broom for the Conservatives in second place, and Labour on 54. Conservatives on 29 and the Lib Dems on 6. And the change, Labour down again 5%, Conservatives down 1%, Lib Dems up, Plaid Cymru same, and the swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 2.1%.
And again here, obviously, Cardiff's a Remainer city, Stephen Doughty, a prominent Labour Remainer, and...
Cardiff
That's
Central,
not Joe Stevens.
Not Joe Stevens.
We can say.
Anyway, yeah, she will be glad, but okay, Joe Stevens, there she is, and Maydon Jenkins in second place.
It's interesting as well, isn't it, how many seats that were marginals and nowhere near being marginals anymore. The marginals we thought were marginals, like Ceredigion, and in the past, of course, Cardiff Central. I mean, they're hefty majorities now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick look at the share and the change in Cardiff Central. Before we go to Allen and Deeside, which I hear is imminent, if we can see the rest of the Cardiff Central detail, here it comes. Labour down 1%, Conservatives same as they were, Lib Dems up 2, Brexit Party up 2. Well, that's a bigger 2 than that 2, but there we go. And Labour to Conservative swing of 0.8%. So there we are. We've rattled through a few results there before we get to Allen and Deeside, which could be another brick in the red wall falling.
Yeah, now this
could be.
This is the one, I think, that's the hardest one for the Conservatives to get, potentially, Allen and Deeside. So
I can see Cardiff North appearing. So this is a big seat and could be some chink of hope for the Labour Party. Let's get a Cardiff North account there.
For the Cardiff North constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows.
Paul Orders, y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol i etholaeth Gogledd Caerdydd yn datgan fod y cyfanswm o bleidleisiau a roddwyd i bob ymgeisydd fel y ganlyn.
Ali Moe, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 19,082 votes.
Ali Moe, ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 19,082.
Butler Chris, Brexit Party, 1,311 votes.
Butler Chris, Brexit Party, 1,311.
Cope Michael David, Wales Green Party, 820 votes.
Cope Michael David, Plaid Werth Cymru, 820.
Jones Richard Lee, Independent, 203 votes.
Jones, Richard Lee, Annie Bunnell, 203.
McMorrin, Anna Rhiannon, Welsh Labour, 26,064 votes.
McMorrin, Anna Rhiannon, Llafur Cymru, 26,064.
Taylor Rees, Welsh Liberal Democrats, 3,580 votes.
Taylor Rees, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru, 3,580.
Webb Stephen Paul, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 1,606 votes.
Webb Stephen Paul, Plaid Cymru, 1,606.
Therefore, I give public notice that Anna McMorrin is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Cardiff North constituency.
So some good news for the Labour Party on a difficult night. Anna McMorrin holding on and increasing her majority in Cardiff North. 26,064 votes for her, and her majority going up to 6,982. Let's see the share of the vote, 49% for Labour. The Conservatives really put in a hard game here, 36% for them, the Lib Dems on 7, Plaid Cymru on 3, and the Change, Labour slightly down, the Conservatives slightly down, down 6%, and the Lib Dems up 4%. And the swing is from Conservatives to Labour of 2.6%. So going against the tide.
And there we have, you know, a middle-class Remainery seat really punishing the Conservatives for their stance on Brexit. It's almost the converse of what we've been seeing happening elsewhere today. And Anna McMorrin, of course, has been one of these very, very prominent Remainer Labour MPs, and she's been rewarded for that. And you know, she was fighting a very tight seat, so it is a big personal victory for her, this one. I think
there were a couple of interesting things going on there. There was the Lib Dem candidate encouraging voters to support the Remain candidate right at the end, despite there not being a Remain alliance.
Yes, and it's hard to know how much of a difference so late in the day that sort of switch
probably not
makes,
much with this majority.
Okay, I think we might have another result. Carmarthen West and Pembrokeshire South Pems is coming up. We can see Stephen Hart way on the left there. He's the incumbent. Be a surprise if he lost that one.
Sorry, say that again.
Stephen Hart.
It would. And
yes, it would, yes.
Somebody
yes,
tipped as potential new Secretary of State for Wales as well.
Member of Parliament for the Carmarthen West and South Pembrokeshire constituency. Ethol Aelod, Seneddol Dros, Etholaeth Gollewin, Gaerfyrddin, a Dare Shir Benfro. Declaration of result of poll. Datgan Canlyniad a Bleidlais. I, Ian Westley, being the acting returning officer at the election of Member of Parliament for the Carmarthen West and South Pembrokeshire constituency held on the 12th of December 2019, hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows. Yr o'i fi, Ian Westley, sef y swyddog cynlyniadau gweithredol, an etholiad aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Gollewin Gaerfyrddin a De Shir Benfro, ar y 12fed o Ragfyr 2019, yn hysbysu drwy hyn fod nifer y pleidleisiau y fwrioi dros bob un o ymgeiswyr yn yr etholiad fel y ganlyn. Cameron Alistair Ronald, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaid Rydfydol Cymru, 1,860, 1,860. Hart Simon Anthony, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, Ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 22,183. 2,020, 183. Thomas Glanville Owen Rees, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 3,633. 2,633. Tierney Mark Liam, Welsh Labour, Llavier Cymru, 14,438. 4,010, 438. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows. Yr oedd nifer y papurau pleidleisio ar othodwyd fel y ganlyn. Want of official mark, 0. Hebnoid swyddogol, dim. Voting for more candidates than the voter was entitled to, 35. Pleidleisio dros ragor o ymgeiswyr nag y ganiataid i'r pleidleisiwr 35. Writing or mark by which voter could be identified, 1. Ysgrifennu nod a gellid abnabod y pleidleisiwr o thont, 1. Being unmarked or wholly void for uncertainty, heb ei facio neu'n hollol yn ilus o heroed and sicroed, 110. Total, 146. cyfanswm 146. And I hereby declare that the said Simon Anthony Hart ac yr oedd yn datgan drwy hi'n fod Simon Anthony Hart is duly elected as Member of Parliament for the Carmarthen West and South Pembrokeshire constituency. Wedi ei ethol yn brioddol yn aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Gorllewin, Gaerfyrddin a De Sir Benfro. The turnout was 71.45%, a nifer y bleidleisioedd 71.45%. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, then a comfortable victory for Simon Hart, who's, I think, more than doubled his majority, 7,745. And Labour in second place, that is his majority. And if we look at the share of the vote, Conservatives on 53%, Labour on 34%, Plaid on 9%, the Lib Dems on 4%. And a quick look at the change, up 6%, the Conservatives, down 5% for Labour, down for Plaid Cymru, and slightly up for the Lib Dems, and the swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 5.5%. Yeah, there's a pattern here. I mean, that is a good result for them, and a man who could be a big figure, possibly in Cabinet.
Yes, indeed. I mean, who is going to be the next Welsh Secretary, assuming we have one? You know, obviously, Alan Cairns would hope to be reappointed, but he has an ongoing Cabinet investigation, which he says will clear him. But that obviously has not concluded yet. And Simon Hart has to be a potential candidate, along with David T.C. Davis, of course.
I would say Simon Hart's a favourite, you know, in terms of having somebody with experience, with the kind of political line he's taken over Brexit and so on. I'd be very surprised if he isn't in the running.
OK. I think it's time to go back to Sarah, who has some fresh faces, I think. Have they been to bed? Has anybody slept at all?
No one's nodded off. I think the coffee must be quite good. No one's nodded off at all, yeah. But yeah, new company with me today. And interestingly, as you've come, you know, the sort of momentum of results has been coming. Now, Sam Blacksford, welcome. You are an academic at Swansea University, and you specialise in the history of the Conservative Party. You were telling me just then, when Anna McMorran actually increased her majority, that is what, the most traditionally Conservative seat in Wales?
I was just saying how topsy-turvy the whole thing was, because in the 70s and the 80s, if you wanted a safe Tory seat in Wales, I mean, they were sort of safe as houses, but if you wanted a pretty safe seat, Cardiff North was where you went. You know, all the demographics matched it. It was, you know, leafy, suburban, middle class, all that kind of stuff. And now it just shows how the Brexit scenario has just completely changed the dynamics.
Yeah, and in fact, when Mrs Thatcher was in power, Cardiff North was always absolutely solid, wasn't it?
Well, when Mrs Thatcher was in power in 1983, the Conservative Party got 14 seats. They got one off their Welsh rugby team of Conservative MPs.
And they had Newport West.
And they had a lot of the seats that they have been trying to go for this time. You know, they had, in 1983, Bridgend, they had Ynys Môn. You know, so these constituencies that they've won again this time are seats that they have proved that they can win in before, but they're also taking seats this time they didn't under Mrs Thatcher, which is what makes this one so remarkable.
Yeah, well, one of my other new friends is Debbie Wilcox. I mean, for the Labour Party, this is a horrendous night, isn't it? And David Hanson, Madeleine Moon, you couldn't even have thought they were in any jeopardy.
Look, I'm going to echo the words of the First Minister. This is a deeply disappointing night for Labour. You know, Welsh Labour are holding the line, and Anna, you know, at least we've had a swing from Conservatives to Labour.
All night.
One all night. But yeah, and I'm not, look, what can I say? I cannot put any gloss on this. This is deeply disappointing, and never mind about a moment of reflection. There needs to be deep reflection. If my GCSE class had turned up with these results in August, I would have been sacked. Right? And
so does that mean Jeremy Corbyn should be sacked tonight?
No, what it means is we need to do a deep analysis of these results.
You haven't got time for deep analysis in Wales, have you?
Well, Wales has held up a lot better. You know, so we are doing well. I'm really pleased that my good friend Tonia kept hold of Gower, an excellent MP. I'm looking forward to seeing her in London next week. But in a lot of seats,
there's been a roughly sort of 7.5–8% swing from Labour to the Conservatives, and it's not long until there's the Welsh elections.
It's absolutely vital that we reflect and that we look at these results and we do what needs to be done. Because, you know, we've still got 4 million children in poverty across the UK. We've still got all those reasons that we put out on the
Yeah, but Jeremy
doorstep.
Corbyn said that and people ignored that and decided on Brexit.
I have no answers. I'm far further down the chain than I need to give answers. But Brexit is a massive issue.
Well, let's hear what's happening in Alun in Deeside.
Result of poll. Datganiad canlyniad y bleidlais. Election of a Member of Parliament for the Alun and Deeside constituency. Etholiad am aelod seneddol ar gyfer etholaeth Alun a Glanau Dyfrdwy. Thursday, the 12th of December 2019. Dydd Iau 12 Rhagfyr 2019. I, Colin Everett, being the acting returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Arwyddi, Colin Everett, sef y swyddog canlyniadau gweithredol yn y etholiad uchod drwy hyn, yn datgan fod nifer y pleidleisiau a gofnodwyd ar gyfer pob ymgeisydd yn yr etholiad yma fel a ganlyn. Hills Susan, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 1,453 votes, 1453. Hills Susan, Plaid Cymru, 1,453. Lalek Donna Louise, Welsh Liberal Democrats to Stop Brexit, 2,548 votes, 2,548. Lalek Donna Louise, Democratiaeth Rhyddfrydol Cymru I stopio Brexit, 2,548. Sen Sanjoy, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 18,058 votes, 18058. Sen Sanjoy, ymgeisydd Plaid Gaedwadol Cymru, 18,058. Tammy Mark Richard, Welsh Labour, 18,271 votes, 18271. Tammy Mark Richard, Llafur Cymru, 18,271. Wall Simon, Brexit Party, 2,678 to 678. Wall Simon, Party Brexit, 2,678. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows. Yr oedd nifer y papurau pleidleisio a wrthodwyd fel a ganlyn. Want of an official mark 1. Absenoldeb nod swyddogol 1. Voting for more than one candidate 17. Pleidleisio dros fwy nag un ymgeisydd 17. Writing or mark by which voter could be identified 0. Ysgrifeniad neu nod I gellid o blegyd adnabod y pleidleisiwr dim. Being unmarked or wholly void 103. Heb ei farcio neu'n hollol anilys oherwydd ansicrwydd 103. Total 121. Cyfanswm 120. And I do hereby declare that Mark Richard Tammy has been duly elected to serve as Member of Parliament for the said constituency.
So Mark Tammy will be going back to Westminster there. So a bit of happiness for you, Debbie Wilcox.
Yes.
But a swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 5.6%.
OK, which seems to have been, much of the swing of the night. I'm delighted that Mark's won the seat. 231 is a majority. It's a very, very small majority. We've got to do better.
Angela Burns, obviously you've been, for the Conservatives, you've been celebrating this evening. Thank you for staying here, not in a champagne bar, and being here with us instead.
Tempting, but...
but how sustainable is this? I mean, because this was so much a Brexit vote, if you like, people weren't necessarily saying that they liked the Conservatives' other policies, were they?
No, but I think that there's a real change, actually, because I think for so long we've had a kind of slightly lazy view of politics, that it's all about, well, if you're this kind of person, you're going to obviously vote that way. And I think that's gone out of the window. I think now people are much more saying, who do I mostly identify with? So I have knocked on doors of houses that you would say are very, very poor, and they've come out staunch Conservative. I have walked up leafy driveways and they've said they're Labour or Plaid Cymru.
So what does determine what people
I
tend
think
to
it's
vote
how
then?
people identify with the people that they want to vote for, and they're looking at candidates, they're looking at parties.
So all these people who have voted Conservative for the first time in Wales identify with Boris Johnson, the Etonian, do they?
No, a lot of them identify with him just because they see him as an ordinary bloke, a man of the people. You may not like it, we may look at it, but, you know, it's not just Brexit. There's a lot of Brexit, but when I knock on the doors, when I was talking to people, there were two things they were saying to me. Jeremy Corbyn, we do not like him.
So it was about two personalities. Who likes who?
Boris Johnson, we like him. He's a bit more down with us. He's a bit more, you know, real. He can talk. They didn't like Jeremy Corbyn. They found him, you know, a very sort of aloof figure. And it's about who they identified with. So it's not just if you belong in this kind of property or in this kind of neighbourhood, you're automatically going to vote for that kind of person. I think it's changing.
If Brexit's going to happen as quickly as Boris Johnson promises, there won't be many other policies, will there?
You
can't answer my question because we're going to Cardiff West.
There's a lot of other policies.
Brennan, Kevin Dennis, Welsh Labour, 23,908 votes.
Brennan, Kevin Dennis, Llafur Cymru, 23,908.
Clark Boyd, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 3,864 votes.
Clark Boyd, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 3,864.
Griffin, David Peter, Wales Green Party, 1,133 votes.
Griffin, David Peter, Plaid Werdd Cymru, 1,133.
Littlemore, Callum James, Welsh Liberal Democrats to stop Brexit, 2,731 votes.
Littlemore, Callum James, Democratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru I stopio Brexit, 2,731.
Mullins, Nick, Brexit Party, 1,619 votes.
Mullins, Nick, Brexit Party, 1,619.
Webster, Carolyn Ann, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, 12,922 votes.
Webster, Carolyn Ann, ymgeisydd Plaid Gydwadol Gymru, 20,922.
Therefore, I give public notice that Kevin Brennan is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Cardiff West constituency.
Felly rwyf yn rhoi hysbysiad cyhoeddus fod Kevin Dennis Brennan wedi ethol yn aelod seneddol dros etholaeth Gorllewin Caerdydd.
The total number of votes cast across
Kevin
the Cardiff
Brennan
West
then,
constituency at the UK
stays as the MP for
Cardiff
Cardiff West, 23,908 votes and a majority of 10,986. The Conservatives in second place, Labour on 52% of the vote, Conservatives on 28, Plaid Cymru on 8, Lib Dems on 6, and that's a fall in the Labour support of 5%, Tories down 2%, Plaid Cymru down 1%, Lib Dems up 3%, Brexit Party up 4%. And we look at the swing, it's from Labour to the Conservatives of 1.6%. Let me just take you back to Alan and Deeside. That result came in, and Mark Tammy will be relieved to hang on in there. Such a small majority, 213. And let's look at the share of the vote. 42.5% for Labour and 42% for the Conservatives. And that is a decrease in the Labour vote of 10%. The Conservatives up 2%, but the Brexit Party up 6%. And that is a swing from Labour to the Conservatives of 5.6%. I just want to show you the scoreboard, the scores on the doors. In Wales, Labour have 22 seats. They've lost 6. The Conservatives have picked them all up. They're on 14, up 6. Plaid Cymru holding their 4. Lib Dems, nothing. Brexit, nothing. And the Greens, nothing. So, big change. Look at that, the colours of the map of Wales. We haven't seen that and those sort of colours. I apologise to viewers on radio, listeners on Radio Wales, but right down the east side of Wales is blue, bar the red of the South Wales valleys. It's a very different map, Fliss.
It really is. And, you know, you go back to 1983, the high watermark, of course, in recent times for the Conservatives in Wales, and they've equalled that number of seats, 14. Labour hasn't quite gone as bad as it did under Michael Foot in 1983. They had 20 back then, and they stopped the losses at 22 this time, with Alun and Deeside stopping a blue wash of those 5 North East Leave voting Labour seats that the Conservatives were targeting.
We've been joined by a very happy man, Andrew Davies, former leader of the party in Wales in the Assembly. It is a good night for you. There's nothing else to say.
It's a good day at the office, in fairness, and I pay tribute to all the candidates and activists, and in particular the voters who had the good sense to back Conservative candidates the length and breadth of Wales.
And what do you think cut through? Was it Boris Johnson? Was it the snappy slogans? Was it Brexit?
Without a shadow of a doubt, this is Boris Johnson's election. It was only, 6-7 months ago that this same studio was covering the European elections here in Wales, and we got just about 7% of the popular vote. Tonight, we're looking at a map that has a huge amount of blue on it. We have a new piece of architecture in Wales, the Blue Wall in North Wales, and it's been built with full planning permission by the voters.
Brexit. So, what happens now? So, we leave at the end of January. Yeah, and then we get a trade deal, do we, by the end of the year?
Well, the manifesto commitment is very clear. All candidates signed up to that manifesto, and it's get on with it now. And that's the mandate to the Prime Minister.
Easier said than done, though, isn't it? Because
well,
maybe the bit to January is...
But the manifesto is clear, and we will deliver on the manifesto. If we don't, the voters will hold us to account for that.
OK, but just looking at the potential trade deal now, I mean, 11 months to negotiate a trade deal with the EU, or are you pretty relaxed with leaving with no deal at the end of the year?
Well, it's going to be challenging, because that's a very tight timeline, but the European Union will look at this electoral map tonight and see exactly what has gone on in the United Kingdom. You know, despite the best efforts of the Remain camp, the British people have voted to put a Prime Minister in who had a clear plan to deliver Brexit. And you can't argue against that. And this mandate now gives the Prime Minister a clear majority to put this through the House of Commons and go into the next stage. And it's for the European Union to step up to the mark now and deliver that deal, because we're starting on a level playing field.
Can I ask you a question, Andrew? How would you feel if Boris Johnson decides to extend beyond December next year if a trade deal isn't agreed? I know he said that he won't, but he said he wouldn't do a lot of things that he did end up doing. And now that if he gets a big majority, he's got a bit more wiggle room, hasn't he? So, you know, how would you feel if he decided to extend into 2021 to try to finalise a trade deal? Would that be a problem for you?
Well, ultimately, the Prime Minister is very clear what he wants to achieve, and that is a trade deal by the end of 2020. That's his clear ambition.
Doesn't, would you mind
this isn't ifs and buts. This is the territory of a majority Conservative government ruling for the first time with a clear parliamentary majority for nearly 30 years.
Oh, I know, but that's what gives him the wiggle room, though,
and the point now is for the European Union to step up to the mark when it comes to the trade deal. Because don't forget, their trade is as much dependent with the UK as we are with them. And so it's not ifs and buts anymore. This is a clear majority to the Prime Minister who had a clear plan going into this election.
Okay,
we were told the Remain alliance was going to smash us to high heaven. It hasn't done that.
Where's the precedent for a trade deal in 11 months?
Well, where's the precedence for two countries or two entities in trade negotiations starting on a level playing field? Because we've been part of the European Union. This isn't Canada coming to the table where you've got to either lift standards or level standards down. We're coming from a level playing field at this. And with goodwill, I believe that can be achieved. But ultimately, tonight is about reflecting on the hard work of Conservative activists and candidates, the length and breadth of this country, the good sense of the great British and Welsh public to back those candidates and give Boris Johnson a majority. And let's reflect on that tonight, because that's something to be celebrated.
And do you feel that people have loaned you your vote? I mean, how do you think that now you're going to keep that vote? Because clearly Brexit has been a huge issue, and people might say, well, we've held our noses and we're voting Conservative now to get Brexit done. But once you've done, and you will do it within a year, you've said, what next?
Well, I think at election time, whichever is the winning party has a certain amount of lent votes, because ultimately we know people move in election periods. I think what would be a big mistake, and I think this is something that the party does need to reflect on, is for this election, you shouldn't read it for the Assembly election. The Assembly election will be a completely different set of circumstances, and anyone trying to read across to that Assembly election needs to reflect on that position.
what sort of campaign can we expect there then, and what sort of message from the Welsh Conservatives?
Let's just enjoy tonight and celebrate with our candidates who are now MPs and their activist teams length and breadth of Wales, because many of these people have put their lives on hold for months,
and will you bring Dominic
years.
Cummings to Wales to give you your three-word slogan?
Well, I think what's really good to look at here is that you've got a Prime Minister who actually came to Wales more times than I can recall a leader coming to Wales, and toured the length and breadth of Wales as well, and put himself in the front line of this campaign. And as I said, this election is very much Boris Johnson's victory.
Finally, who should be Secretary of State for Wales?
That's not in my gift. It's not in any member's gift. That's in the gift of the Prime Minister, that is.
Who would you like to
It's
be
in the gift of the Prime Minister.
Well, go on, you can say what you like tonight. You've won, so I mean,
I
you're
normally
winning.
end up in trouble when I do things like that. I've been very well behaved. I've been very well behaved lately, I have.
Okay, Andrati Davis will be back to you. But let's touch base with James. He's in the House of Commons.
Hello, Bethan. How are you? Given that it's coming up to 7 hours now since we had that exit poll result, I just wanted to give you the latest picture of how we expect things to look here in the House of Commons at the end of the night, because the BBC is predicting that the numbers are slightly different from the exit poll figures, only slightly. But even so, let's look at the new numbers that we're predicting. The Conservatives, still the biggest party, clearly past this winning line of 326. We're putting them on 363 seats, up 45 from where they were in 2017. On the other side of the chamber, it's looking slightly better for the Labour Party. Still dreadful, though. 197 seats for them, down 65. That would be their worst election result in the UK since 1935. A worse result than even Michael Foot's in 1983. As for the SNP, well, they're down to what we were predicting at the start of the night. We're putting them on 53. Up 18, which would be their second best ever Westminster election result. The Lib Dems, we've still got them on 13, up 1 from 2017. Plaid Cymru, things are looking slightly better. They've held on to the 4 seats they had at the start of the night, and the Greens have held their seat in Brighton Pavilion. No seats for the Brexit Party, and 19 others, well, they include the Northern Irish seats. More on that in a bit. So this is how we think things will look here in the House of Commons at the end of the night. Of course, in terms of the Welsh political map, we know how it looks, don't we? We've had all 40 results now, and if you were with us at the start of the night, well, thank you very much for staying with us, and well done to you. But you'll also notice that things are very different here in North Wales, aren't they? Very little Labour red anymore. Ynys Môn has gone from Labour to Tory, as has the Vale of Clwyd, Delyn, Wrexham and Clwyd South as well. Alun and Deeside, the only bit of red in North Wales at the present time. It's a very different story for the Labour Party in South Wales, however. They managed to withhold Conservative advances in many seats, including Gower and, well, just by a whisker, in Newport West as well. Cardiff North, quite comfortable for the Labour Party there, but they have lost Bridgend. So that's the picture in Wales, a different political palette than we had at the start of the night. What about the rest of the United Kingdom? Let's just give you a quick overview. We've got still many results to come in England, but roughly we're talking about similar patterns in Wales and England, a swing of around about 5% from the Labour Party to the Conservatives. A very different picture in Scotland, of course. We're looking at another SNP landslide of the proportions that they had in 2015. As I said, we're putting them on about 53 of the 59 seats in Scotland. Jo Swinson, the Liberal Democrat leader, she's lost her seat. So, you know, SNP territory in Scotland. And, you know, let's not forget that it's not that long ago that the SNP were winning 5, 6 seats in Scotland. Things have completely changed there. Changes in Northern Ireland as well. The DUP have lost seats. They lost Belfast North, to Sinn Féin. DUP Westminster leader Nigel Dodds losing his seat there. They've also lost Belfast South to the SDLP, and they've also lost the Alliance Party have also won North Down. So changes in Northern Ireland as well. Many more seats to declare in Scotland and England, but the seats in Wales already in, and the picture very much across the country is a clear majority for Boris Johnson's Conservatives.
Thank you very much, James. It is a very, very different map indeed, all that blue. Let's go straight over to Sarah.
A lot of blue, not much yellow. William Powell, not a good night for you.
It's not a great night for the Liberal Democrats, I think it's fair to say. It's a disastrous night for Labour. And I think in the long term, it's a devastating night for the United Kingdom because, as Artie referred to earlier, the Johnson-Cummings strategy has worked and it's paid off handsomely for them. But I think this is the election which turns Great Britain potentially into Little Britain. I think that the prospects for Scotland remaining within the Union in the long term, the future for Northern Ireland, there's big change afoot and we need to recognise that.
But you could say to people like yourselves that you hadn't learnt the lesson that was given in 2016. Partly that small slogans work, and secondly, that people were wanting Brexit.
Clearly, small slogans, take back control, is as much of a deceit as get Brexit done. But they have worked.
And the word revoke didn't work, did it?
No, I would say if one of the key things that we should reflect on as a party is that too much note was given of the outcome of the European elections. Traditionally, different elections are regarded as different order elections, and I think the European election has always been one where votes are cast in a more radical way. We saw that as long ago as 1989 when the Green Party had a very good innings. In this year's European election, clearly there was a major spike, and we made assumptions based around that, and they weren't based on the reality, I fear.
And Sam, this big blue swathe right down the border, right down Offa's Dyke now.
Yeah. Well, you used to be able to, they say, they used to be able to walk from Anglesey all the way to Cardiff without leaving Conservative territory after, I think it was the 1979 general election.
After 79?
Yeah, I think it was. But
that's quite a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago. And now you could walk all over Wales. You could zigzag over quite a lot of it, couldn't you? And you'd be in Tory territory. So, yeah, there's no doubt it's been an excellent night for them.
Do you agree with Angela's viewpoint that actually the people who are voting Conservative now are not all of one type, if you like? It's not about your background, your class, your profession.
All of that is definitely splintering. And again, if we take the long historical view, that's been splintering for quite a long time, since the decline of the heavy industries, etc. But I think what Angela was saying about Boris Johnson probably is quite apt, because even though he is supposedly this, old Etonian kind of blusterer...
I think she was saying it amongst ourselves when Bethan was talking. Yeah. She was saying he'd be a good man to go to the pub with.
Well, in some ways, and actually, I think this...
He's optimistic.
And not as many people get het up about this idea of you going to Eton, because most people don't care, unless you're sort of some real class warrior. Yeah. Then the fact that what school he went to is secondary to how effective a communicator he is. And in his case, it is very effective, and it's quite sort of, ironically, so considering his background, it's quite man of the people.
Well, is it him or is it Dominic Cummings? I mean, was it the whole campaign, or was it Boris?
Yeah, I mean, Boris Johnson is a confected character, isn't he? I mean, his name isn't even Boris. Let's get that right. That's a stage name. Because his first name's Alexander. But all politicians, to some extent, are characters, and they put on a face. And I think that Boris is just a particularly... Mr Johnson is just a particularly effective person at putting on that political front.
And perhaps that was part of the problem for Jeremy Corbyn, is that he tried to come over as, the straight-talking, humble man, and that didn't wash.
Oh, he's trying to come over as grandfather.
If I just pick up on one of William's lines about Little Britain, I seriously feel this morning it's Little Britain, but it's without the comedy. Yeah. This is a very serious Little Britain that we're facing.
Interestingly, there's a tweet from Andrew Marr. Andrew Marr is tweeting that Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell will make a joint announcement tomorrow, almost certainly announcing the timescale of their resignation. McDonnell will not stay on as caretaker leader. Now, earlier this week, it seemed the Financial Times was quoting that he would be the interim leader.
Yeah.
Do you think that's right? You were saying earlier that the Labour Party needs to do a lot of thinking.
Yes.
Do you think that's right? Both have to go now?
I think within that deep reflection, it's absolutely clear that what didn't work was what was put across to the people of the UK. And in that deep reflection, then clearly, look, if I'd lost in 2017 in Newport, I wouldn't have been the leader of the council the next day.
That says it all, doesn't it, really? And what about Angela's point that, you know, people now are not voting according to their traditional class lines, if you like? I mean, you know, you're in the House of Lords now, but still very much a Newport woman. One day. OK.
Valley's girl as well.
Valley's girl. Pontypridd, isn't it?
No, Rhondda.
Rhondda, OK. Rhondda and Newport. Do you think, would you agree with Angela that people are not thinking in kind of class or tribal groups anymore?
I think the demographic is changing, and I think what we need to address, certainly what the Labour Party needs to address, is those changed demographics. I think...
What do you mean by that? What do you mean? What aspect of the demographics?
I think that, you know, 21st century life is changing, isn't it? So what Angela talked about those traditional tribal loyalties, clearly we've seen changes in, you know, several elections, you know, let's be absolutely clear. But what we have to appeal to, you know, I taught a play called An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley, and the line in that is, we are a community, we are responsible for each other. That's what we need people to understand. And working together is, you know, is far, far better.
Angela, you look confused by that.
Yeah, I'm not confused by that. I think there's one other thing that I'd like to say about this whole election is that the public are not stupid.
Yeah. That's
and you see, for the last couple of years...
Who's saying they are?
Well, for the last couple of years, I have listened to Labour and Plaid Cymru in the Assembly go on and on and on about how the public didn't understand. They didn't understand the big picture. They've been misled. They're this, they're that, they're the other.
Well, they were misled.
Brexit is a bad thing, etc. But actually, they've come back and said very clearly, we know what we want to do. But that's the problem, though, Debbie, because politicians go around going, we've given you the vote. But you know what? You didn't vote the way we think you should have voted.
Did people know what they were voting for?
Yes, I think. Well, they've just done it again.
But we still don't know what the deal is, do we? We don't know what the trade agreements are.
The point is that the media, in particular, a lot of politicians, other parties, it's all about, well, they didn't really know. And
it's quite funny because Jeremy Corbyn was blaming the media as well about an hour ago.
Terrible night. You know, they don't know what they're doing, and they've said it again. Now, I didn't vote to leave. Remember, I was a Remainer. I accept the democratic will. They've just come back and they've reinforced that democratic will in spades. I think we've got to get to grips with it and deliver the Brexit that people want.
Come on, William, what do you say to that?
Well, I think Brexit clearly will happen now. It would be perverse to argue against it. But what is absolutely critical in the Parliament that will be formed as a result of this election is that the legislation is scrutinised in detail, and that's why I really welcome.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why I really welcome the election of key figures. The fact that after the loss of our own leader, Jo Swinson, which I profoundly regret, and our leader in Wales, Jane, which I regret equally, we actually have a body of MPs who will bring that scrutiny, and I'm also delighted to see the return of Labour and Plaid Cymru members who have, in the Welsh context particularly, who have brought real scrutiny.
You're desperately trying to be optimistic, Charlie.
I am doing my best.
In the morning.
No,
it's almost
the people of Wales. And that's
Sam,
what they didn't do.
One moment, Sam. As Mark Reckless was saying earlier, you know, there's still a long way to go, and if the final agreement, the trade agreements and things like that are nurtured and developed, if they are too close, because in a way to get a quick one, the secret is to stay relatively close to the EU and the relationship that we have now. If they are too close, then the Conservative Party will begin to fall apart again.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously Boris Johnson says that's not the case, and they've all promised, but what do you think?
New House of Commons, new compilation of MPs, new disagreements to have about a fundamentally very, very difficult question. What Andrew Davis said a moment ago is right, though, which is that the UK starts in a different position to other countries who've tried to have a trade deal with the EU. So it has that advantage, at least. But no,
we don't know it's an advantage. They might be totally fed up with this.
Well, perhaps, but I think. Well, no, maybe not. But I think on balance, there's probably something to be said for it. And at least the Prime Minister has that level of optimism there. It's worth going into this at least with an optimistic front, although it might not end up being.
And during the campaign, we had all this argument about what was really going to happen between trade between the UK and Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Ireland and Great Britain. That was never really sorted out as to who was telling the truth there and who wasn't. I mean, there are big hurdles.
Huge, yeah. And everyone's been talking for such a long time about this thing called a withdrawal agreement, which actually is just the formal process of leaving.
That's just like we're going.
It's nothing to do with the future relationship.
So it's not the journey,
exactly. So we have to grapple with this idea that there's a huge thing coming. But just something very quickly to say, which which is that this election we've just had is what should have happened immediately after the referendum 3 years ago or whenever it was. The people who took ownership of being in charge of vote leave, i.e. someone like Boris Johnson, should have taken the leadership of the Conservative Party, should have been elected there, and then should have put this kind of message out. Incidentally, I hope that it will actually lead now. The thing we desperately need, clearly, in the House of Commons is some sort of sense of compromise that can hopefully then filter out into the country. And I hope that with all these new debates that we're going to have, that there will be some sort of sense of compromise about how we leave the EU.
Is that in Boris Johnson's
relatively
vocabulary?
Softly. I think it is,
Well, actually, I think
it is. Do you, Angela?
I think it is, because the other side of the compromise coin is unity, and I think one of the big jobs that the Conservative government have ahead of them now is to try to bring back our communities, bring back our countries. People may still fundamentally disagree about whether we should go or stay or whatever.
Or what type of deal.
Or what type of deal. But the point is, he's got the mandate to go and try and get the best possible deal. So you know, people have said to him, you know, we don't know the details of the deal. The man in the street, the woman in the street doesn't know. But they've given the mandate to him to get it.
Your best deal for the UK to have with the EU might be different from Sam's best deal and somebody else's best deal. I mean, who's going to determine what the best deal is?
Well, yes, of course.
Isn't that when the Conservative Party will begin to fall apart again?
No, because that's what Boris Johnson's been tasked to do, and let's be really clear.
So it'll be his best deal?
It will be his best deal, I think, very much so, but with, and this is where I absolutely agree with Bill, we have got to have excellent scrutiny. It's got to be a deal that suits the country, that is good for the country, but we've got to get a deal. What we can now stop having is this sort of malaise where we don't move forward, where businesses are screaming.
And will that scrutiny be by the House of Lords?
Well, I hope so. I look forward to staying here.
So Debbie's going to be scrutinising your deal.
I'll be sitting there alone.
Yeah, but don't forget the unity thing, because actually, I mean, I've been reading some of the tweets, and people have been putting out shocking tweets saying, you know, all Tories are scum of the earth.
That's got to stop.
You know, stop it, guys. You're talking about your friend, your neighbour, your work colleague.
I think that is something we might all agree on.
Yeah, we all have different views, and I think we've got to stop it, because actually, you know, you're not a bad person. We just have a different view about how to achieve something great for Wales.
Angela's absolutely right, and what we need to have now is, if Boris Johnson is to be a one-nation Prime Minister, that will also be extending a hand across the chamber to deal with the opposition parties as well, to create a genuine understanding.
Right, look what we've got here. We've got unity, we've got compromise, we've got everyone agreeing, no bad talking.
Under a new regime.
Back
no
to you,
more
Beth Ann.
toxicity.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, a bit of unity. First bit of unity all night, but what a night it's been. And the time has flown. It's coming up to 5 o'clock. And it's time to say goodbye to our Radio Wales listeners who've been with us throughout the night. Thanks for sticking with us if you did. Now, Claire Summers and Oliver Hydes will now guide you through the next few hours. Good morning, bore da, and thanks for your company. But if you're watching on BBC Radio Wales, stay with us, because we've got an extra hour and we're going to keep going and analysing, just taking a breath and looking at the scale of what's happened tonight, because it has been quite monumental. And I want to show you just some of the seats that the Conservatives have won across the UK. But in Wales, here we go. Bridgend, Clwyd South, Delyn, Vale of Clwyd, Wrexham, Ynys Môn have all gone blue. Andrew R.T. Davis, I mean, did you expect that sort of scale of victory?
Well, most probably getting on in years now, just tipped over the 50. I can remember the conversations in the Conservative Party where the breakthrough in North East Wales was coming 10, 15 years ago. Likewise, Bridgend was always in the mix, but tonight it's actually happened. And it's happened for a very good reason, because we had a very clear message in this campaign, and we had a leader that people could identify with. I think Angela Byrne's making the point, you know, he's the guy that you'd want to go down the pub with, and put those factors together, and that's what's won us this election.
Fliss, I mean, you know, those were the gains. Of course, there are others that they have already, but, you know, it's quite striking.
Labour, aside from Alun and Deeside, is vanquished from the north of Wales. Vanquished. It's incredible. And I wonder whether it's all about Boris Johnson's victory, Andrew, or whether it's partially about Jeremy Corbyn being unpalatable to traditional Welsh voters. To what extent did Jeremy Corbyn lose this
That's a very fair point, because most conversations started one of two ways. It was either I don't like Jeremy Corbyn or I want Brexit done. And I think most people, now that the election's out of the way, will admit to those conversations. They will then on the doorstep. And those were the key drivers.
And they go together, don't they, Andrew?
They match hand in glove as such.
Yeah,
and I mean, you know, for Jeremy Corbyn's point of view, far from me to speak for Labour, but really that BBC debate where he stood, or question time discussion panel, where he stood on the platform and said, I'm going to remain neutral, when a country's looking for leadership and ultimately wanting direction, really did encapsulate it for a lot of voters, as well as a lot of other background music. But I go back to this point, you know, only 6-7 months ago, this studio was broadcasting the European results, where the Conservatives got just about 7% of the vote in Wales. Tonight, we're looking at a map that is dominated by blue. And as I said, in areas that for maybe 15, 20 years, we've been talking about a political breakthrough.
I think that's a really important point, because the one thing we do know is that voters are more volatile, and they are more volatile between types of elections. So, you know, Andrew's right. At the moment, that looks a wonderful image for the Welsh Conservatives as they prepare for the 2021 election. But that's going to be a very different election. It won't be a Brexit election, one assumes. It'll be an election fought on devolved public policy.
That is one thing I would caution my colleagues on, as an Assembly member. Do not read this result as a natural conclusion for the 2021 election. There's a lot of hard work to do for the Assembly election, and it'll be fought completely different. And if you can get a change in this magnitude over 7 months, just think what potentially could happen. And that's the challenge to the Welsh Conservatives, that we hold what we got.
Yeah, and there's no doubt it's turned blue here and in England. But let's look at Scotland, where there's that swathe of yellow. What would your advice be to Boris Johnson when Nicola Sturgeon, who's had a very good night in Scotland, says Scotland has sent a very clear message: we don't want a Boris Johnson government, we don't want to leave the EU. Boris Johnson has a mandate to take England out of the EU, but he must accept that I have a mandate to give Scotland a choice for an alternative future. How does he deal with Scotland? How does he deal with the SNP now?
Well, I haven't seen all the results come in from Scotland yet, but ultimately...
You're looking at 50 plus seats for the SNP.
I think that's the projection, that is, then. But ultimately, what's gone on tonight...
No, that is
confirmed, is it?
Well, that's the expectation now, yeah.
Right. Well, obviously, Boris Johnson needs to engage with Scottish colleagues, and ultimately, this is the difference that's going on in Scotland, where there was a poll recently, several polls recently, that showed actually there was growing support for their links with the Union of the United Kingdom. But ironically, this general election obviously has returned an increased number of SNP MPs to Westminster. And so obviously that engagement will have to continue. But it is only, 5 years ago that we had the referendum in 2014. Even if the dynamics were different in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon would still be calling for an independence referendum, because, to her credit, she's a nationalist politician. That's in her DNA. So whether it was 30, whether it was 10, whether it's 50, she'd still be calling for that independence referendum.
But the SNP are actually on 45 at the moment, but they will get over the 50 threshold if you look at where the seats are to come. But this is a very significant issue, isn't it, Andrew? You know, we had one of the top civil servants from Whitehall telling us this week that keeping the union together was going to be a harder job for Boris Johnson if he won this election than exiting the European Union. So, you know, a unionist party seeing the breakup of the United Kingdom. I mean, how would you live with that?
I think what's really important to recognise as well is one of the first jobs that Boris Johnson did when he assumed the prime ministerial role back in July was that he actually incorporated into his title Minister for the Union. He did, and that's how important to him the union is.
Well, the title won't mean anything if Scotland.
But it shows the thinking at the centre of government. It's not something that's an afterthought. It's at the forefront of government thinking, and ultimately, as I said, if this election is borne out as it is in Scotland on the projections, then obviously a discussion, a dialogue will be needed, and to make sure that the union does hold together, because the benefits of that union are far greater than a fragmented union.
For me, I just see that...
We just want to take a count which is slightly historic. Dennis Skinner's count of Bolsover, the beast of Bolsover. Let's see what's happening there. The Labour MP.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the declaration. I, Sarah Sternberg, the Deputy Returning Officer at this election, give you the following results for each candidate for Bolsover. Fletcher Mark Peter, the Conservative Party candidate, 21,791. Hancock David Martin, Liberal Democrats, 1,759. Harper Kevin Brendan, Brexit Party, 4,151. Hoy Natalie Jane, Independent, 470. Kesteven David John, Green Party, 758. Skinner Dennis, Labour Party, 16,492. Walker Ross, Independent, 517. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows: want of an official mark, 0. Voting for more candidates than the voter was entitled to, 28. Writing or mark by which the voter could be identified, 2. Being unmarked or wholly void for uncertainty, 121. And rejected in part, 0, giving a total of 151. And I do hereby declare that Mark Peter Fletcher is elected to serve as Member of Parliament for the constituency of Bolsover. Thank you.
Right, so the Conservative Party have crossed the line. There we are. They have a majority. They've crossed the line of 326 seats. And there we heard that they'd taken the seat of the veteran Labour MP, 84-year-old Dennis Skinner. It was his 14th election. He didn't turn up at the count. He was due to be father of the House had he won this election, but he is, as of now, no longer an MP. It's turned blue. Bolsover has gone to the Conservatives, and the Conservatives, it's official, win a majority.
With more seats still to come, of course. So, you know, a very healthy majority for Boris Johnson, which actually does give him a bit of wiggle room in what will be a difficult year ahead. We are now, it seems, going to be leaving the European Union as promised at the end of January next year. But then, you know, there will be inevitably a tricky trade deal to negotiate, and whether it can be done in the time frame that's currently being envisaged, we have to wait and see. But Mr Johnson has some room for manoeuvre with a majority that big now.
And that triple lock on taxes, you know, no tax increases in terms of VAT, in terms of income tax, in terms of national insurance, and you've got to deliver better public services.
Well, if I could just say, you couldn't have screened that better in a Hollywood blockbuster, could you? Bolsover put us over the majority line. You know, Dennis Skinner, the symbol of the left of Labour, sitting in that position in the House of Commons, a significant figure to say the least, and his famous remarks every time Black Rod hit the door, walked in on the Queen's speech and commanded the House to come up to the House of Lords to listen to the Queen deliver her address, and that's the seat that has delivered us, I assume there's no delay on this, that's delivered us the seat that's taken us over the 326.
That certainly is. Yeah, and his comments will be missed. They're an institution in Westminster. But back to the domestic agenda. I mean, putting Brexit to one side, you've got to get great momentum now going on the domestic agenda as well, haven't you? And you've promised that triple lock on taxes, it's not going to be easy to stick to that. The IFS has warned that it's not going to be easy.
Well, I think that's really important for this majority Conservative government now, that it doesn't fixate on Brexit, and in the minority position we found ourselves in, just have all the energy sucked out of the government. There is a dynamic domestic agenda to deliver on, whether it be in health, whether it be in education, whether it be on the economic front or the social justice front, importantly, because that has been the messaging from the Boris Johnson camp. You know, this isn't just about Brexit. Don't mark me out as just a Brexiteer, but a one-nation Conservative. And now with the MPs spread across the United Kingdom as they are, in seats that, you know, going back to the war we've never held, if we're going to hold those seats and develop that foothold, we're going to have to deliver that domestic agenda in the magnitude that Boris Johnson has outlined in the manifesto.
I can see fresh faces, or not, maybe not so fresh on the sofa. No offence.
New faces, that's what they are. New faces with amazing energy for this time of night. First of all, Wayne David, Dennis Skinner going. I mean, you know, whether one agrees with his politics or not, he's become such a character. But for you, of course, he's been really the kind of heart of the traditional Labour Party, if you like.
Yes, and I think that every single Labour Party member throughout the country will be enormously sad. But I think that, you know, Dennis, his defeat tonight sort of indicates that the Labour Party really has to open a new chapter if it's going to be a relevant party for this century.
Yeah, I mean, a coalfield, an old coalfield community that isn't exactly flourishing now. If Labour can't win there, then what future does it have?
Well, that's why the Labour Party has to reform, and needs to reform quickly, and it needs to do it in a drastic way. If we are to
in a drastic way, so what does that mean?
Well, I think that we need to have a full examination of our policies, the manifesto we had, the nature of our leadership in the future. I think all of these issues need to be considered dramatically if we are to be a party which could be relevant to the people of this country.
Now, one of the Labour Party's problems, in a way, is its manifesto is largely determined by conference, isn't it? And a conference, or they put ideas forward. Conferences aren't always the best way to decide policy. You know, was this manifesto trying to please too many different sub-parties, if you like?
Well, at the end of the day, the manifesto is put together by the leadership. The party debate ideas, and debate is good, and it decides policies and resolutions. But the manifesto is put forward by the leadership. It is their possession.
So
and
does the leadership go now?
Well, I think that we've already heard that...
Andrew Marr is saying Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell will go. Who else should go?
Well, I think...
Because there's more than just two of them.
Yes, but basically, that is the leadership of the party, and they bear responsibility for this election, and it is a huge defeat, the biggest defeat in the Labour Party's history since 1935. Let's not underestimate just how significant this is. And I think what we have to collectively decide that we open a new chapter in the party's development if we are to be a party which is relevant to the people of this country and a party able and fit to win the next election, which I desperately hope we do.
Where's Keir Starmer been?
Good question.
Is he waiting in the wings?
Ask the leadership.
About to come in? The leadership kept him away, did they?
Absolutely. The leadership bear responsibility for this election campaign and his huge election defeat.
OK, but where does that leave Welsh Labour? Because Mark Drakeford likes Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, I like Jeremy Corbyn as well. I think he's a man of principle and courage and determination.
Did you support him for leader?
I didn't support him for leader,
no.
But
so you didn't feel he was leadership quality. Mark Drakeford does.
But nevertheless, I think he's a man of integrity and leadership. But what is significant, and I chaired the election campaign committee here in Wales for the Labour Party, was that the policy was dictated to us by the leader's office in London. And I think that we have to recognise that it was a disaster here in Wales and throughout the country, and we need to learn the lessons pretty damn quick.
Glyn Davis, watching this, slightly distanced, let's say, because obviously
I'm still pretty involved.
You care, of course you care, and your man won in your former seat.
Yeah.
This relationship between the party, the Labour Party central bit, and Wales, isn't there going to be a problem that your party, the Conservative Party, might well be dominated by the London Conservative Party and might find itself in the future not listening enough here?
I must say, I don't have that fear. I think it's a big change for the Conservative. It's a fantastic victory for the Conservative Party tonight, that's clear. But there's some huge challenges facing the new incoming government, facing the Prime Minister. I won't pretend there's massive challenges.
What do you think the biggest challenges are?
It's not Brexit now. I think that will go through, and then there'll be the trade deal will dominate the next 12 months in terms of time and discussion. I think that'll happen. But the challenge, I think now, is the union in part, and I just think that the Prime Minister will see this. He can see the issue. He's big unionist. You can see that an awful lot of the working class of Britain, of England in particular, and in Wales, are now in the Conservative corner, but he knows that Scotland must be in the Conservative corner as well. He knows we have to have strong, and it's not just saying we're going to build strong links. You have to behave in a certain way that the people of Scotland say, wait a minute, indeed as the working class of Wayne was talking, the working class areas of Britain have looked at Boris Johnson and they said, wait a minute, we can work with this man. And we need to have the people of Scotland and all the people who are saying the same thing.
Why do you think they thought that? Why did they think?
That's a lot to do with Brexit. And the issue of...
Or was it that the other parties just didn't embrace social media enough? They had sort of wishy-washy slogans. You know, did people know who were the few?
I don't know, it's a bit of a job, and I don't like to... I try never to talk about other parties much. I try to stick to my own.
OK.
But there was an issue. I do think that the Labour Party, Wayne in particular, I think they weren't clear on their Brexit policy. I mean, it wasn't one that you could explain. You can explain to people, you can explain to Andrew Marr what your policy is, but you try to explain that to people who haven't got much time or interest in politics. I mean, I had to sit down and listen to know what on earth Jeremy Corbyn was talking about.
OK.
It's a fair point, but can I just say this about personalities?
Very quickly.
The people I met were not impressed by Boris Johnson. but they said they weren't impressed with Jeremy Corbyn either.
Yeah, so
I mean,
which
it's a
one do
pity
you like
for a choice.
least?
Yes.
Okay.
That's no way to go forward.
Annabelle, is this the end of the union?
Well, this, you see, illustrates a much more profound problem, I think, than Brexit was actually a sign of other much deeper lying things. If you look at the United Kingdom, it's one of the most unequal, geographically included, by the way, unequal states in the advanced world. You know, 9 out of the 12, what they call NUTS1 regions, are permanently in deficit. Now, people understand this, because deficit, well, economists use those terms, but it means poor pay, poor career opportunities, brighter people have to leave to progress and so on. Poor standard of living, pretty miserable life. Now, I mean, it's starting to emerge quite interesting. You're talking about Scotland, absolutely. Look at the north of England. There's the UK 2070 Commission set up, you know, by Bob Kerslake, used to be head of the Home Civil Service, looking at why is the north of England so badly treated by London. Because London has the bulk of the investment, public investment, by the way. It's gone on under Labour and the Conservatives. So I'm not making a party political point, because, I mean, I'm sure you know, you've been in London, gentlemen, just I spent most of my career in the City of London. There's a certain perspective there, and they are pretty well out of touch with the rest of provincial England, as well as Wales and Scotland.
And quite frankly, we're all
that.
paying into pension funds or insurance companies, aren't we, that are headquartered. So we're all paying money into London, aren't we, in our normal lives?
And you look at where all the big public investments been. The overwhelming majority for 50
I'm sure
years
if
has
Boris
been in
Johnson
London.
was here, what he would say is we're going to have a UK shared prosperity fund.
Well, yes, but
with the money that won't be going to Brussels.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, I mean, where Boris Johnson's in a very strong position, I mean, his manifesto had virtually no commitments in it at all. You know, so he's in a strong position now because he can do almost what he wants, provided he gets the support of his party in Parliament.
Well, he's got to get the nurses he promised and the police he promised.
Yeah, but nobody believes those. And that's the other thing, of course, because Boris Johnson doesn't believe what he says. He's a deceitful person, we know that.
This is where I've had the part company with you. You're talking sensible.
OK, hang on a second. Finish your point.
Let's get back to the manifesto. I mean, he said the triple lock on taxation. The economy is not growing at the moment. The UK economy the last 3 years didn't grow at all. So how are you going to grow your tax revenues to pay for the vital public services we all need? How are you going to pay for it?
Yeah,
because you're not going to be paying for it according to your manifesto costings, because you're not going to grow the economy. You're not going to put taxes up. You're not going to borrow.
Answer it. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, the economy is not growing.
Zero.
I think quite a lot of Europe is in exactly the same position.
No, it isn't. It's not growing slowly, but not as slowly as that.
Well, I mean, and you're splitting hairs here, to be actually. But in a sense that it's right, and this is the challenge. We've had so much uncertainty. But I've been in the House of Commons last week. We don't know what's going to create. Well, no, the people voted for it. The people voted to leave.
In the first place.
But one moment, Caroline.
Caroline,
where does this leave the Brexit party?
The uncertainty wasn't created by one party. Let's get that.
Do you want to claim the credit for the uncertainty?
No. No. Well, some of it, but we weren't in Parliament, were we?
No.
But all the parties.
You were around the outside
nobody
shouting
could
quite
agree on anything. So the uncertainty was caused by the MPs that were currently there because they couldn't get their heads together and deliver what the people wanted. I mean, and this is proof of the pudding, isn't it? Because what you've got now, you've got people have made, you know, they've voted with their feet, haven't they? So you've now got a huge majority with the Conservative Party. So people have said, we made a decision to vote for Brexit in 2016. It wasn't delivered. Now they've made sure that the Conservatives have a majority to deliver on what they voted for.
Right,
so that referendum is going to be
Let's
delivered.
keep off economics for a moment.
Right.
In terms of pure politics, with the SNP doing as well as it has, and as you know, I think everyone would here agree that at the moment we have a very divided Britain. Is this the end of the union?
I hope so.
Why do you hope so? Because you want it to come here next?
Well, I think you look at someone like... Look at
Because
Ireland.
it depends on whether the government actually allows Scotland to have another referendum, doesn't it?
The very moot point. It'd be rather interesting in a year or two if the UK government tries to block the will of the Scottish people. It'd be very interesting to see the reaction to that.
Do you think they would?
I don't know. You have to ask them.
Glenn, come on, would they?
Well,
I mean, it is the Conservative and Unionist Party.
Yeah, but the one thing where I do agree with the tenor of this discussion in that one of the biggest challenges, I think I said that, facing the incoming government, is to deal with this issue. And it's not good just saying it. There's going to have to be policy changes. There's going to have to be a change of attitude, I think, towards Scotland. It's not good shouting at Scotland. You've got to find a way of developing the relationship with Scotland that brings them back into the Union. I mean, I don't think breaking up the Union is a good thing. I completely disagree with that. But I mean, that's what is going to happen unless we make a real effort to bring Scotland back into it.
Ivor, is it too late for that?
Well, you can never say it's too late, but certainly the trend's very encouraging that Scotland will get its independence. And just as you look at, well, look at Ireland 100 years ago. The Irish Republic was a really poor place. Its economy was per head of population was half of that of the north of Ireland. Which one's doing better now? Would you go and ask the people of Ireland would they prefer to be part of a united kingdom? Of course they wouldn't.
There we are. On that point, I think we should pause, all take a deep breath and hand back to Bethan.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, let's all take a breather and remind ourselves. We've been going for nearly 8 hours now. You're hitting the orange now. You're on the Satsumas.
I've got more if anyone wants one.
Right, well, let's cross to James, and he'll remind us now, I think. There he is, outside with his baubles, outside Downing Street, and just remind us of the story of the night. It's been a dramatic one, James.
It has. Plenty of baubles here, Bethan. No Satsumas, of course, but there is a festive vibe here, and we now know, of course, who will be enjoying their Christmas dinner here behind that famous black door in a few weeks' time. It's, of course, Boris Johnson, who is cock-a-hoop this morning because his election gamble has paid off big time. Based on taking seats away from the Labour Party in England, for sure, but also here in Wales. This is how the Welsh political map looked like before today's vote, and this is what it looks like right now. A lot more Conservative blue, a lot less Labour red. This is what happened across Wales in terms of vote share. As we can see, the Labour Party still out in front, 41% of the vote for them. This is 27 election victories in Wales and counting in terms of Westminster elections. The Conservatives in second place, just behind them on 36% of the vote. And this is the best Conservative vote share since universal suffrage. A remarkable result for the Conservatives here in Wales. What happened in terms of vote share changes since 2017? We see the Conservatives up 3%, but look at this. Labour down 8% across Wales. And that's why they've lost so many seats to the Conservatives tonight. 6 in total. The Conservatives taking 7 in all. They've taken back Brecon and Radnorshire from the Liberal Democrats. But as I said, 6 from the Labour Party, including 5 up here in North Wales. Ynys Môn has gone blue, as has the Vale of Clwyd, Wrexham, Clwyd South, and also Delyn. Let's look at the result in Delyn to give us an idea of what was happening in these Brexit supporting seats that were once red Labour seats. As we can see here, the Conservatives have just about pipped the Labour Party to the post, around about 800 votes in it. But what has happened in terms of the vote share change this time round? Well, once again, it's similar to that overall Wales picture, isn't it? Labour Party down 11%, Conservatives up 2%, meaning the Labour Party has lost this seat that they've held since 1992, and it was David Hanson who took it from the Conservatives in 1992. Of course, he's now lost that seat back to the Conservatives. A very different picture, though, for the Conservatives and Labour in Cardiff North. Let's look at the results there. It's extraordinarily different, which just goes to show that this perhaps was a genuinely Brexit election, because in Remain supporting Cardiff, the Labour Party have increased their majority. Anna McMorrin increasing her majority in Cardiff North. And let's look at the vote share here. They've actually gone down in terms of vote share, down 1%, but it's the Conservatives that have gone down 6%, showing that we've got different results in Remain supporting areas and Brexit supporting areas. In terms of the other parties, well, there's no Liberal Democrat yellow-orange here, is there anymore? Let's look at the result in Ceredigion. Plaid Cymru managing to keep all 4 of the seats they had at the start of the night. The Liberal Democrats were hoping to mount a serious challenge here, because this was the second most marginal seat in all of Wales before the result. a tight contest between Plaid Cymru and the Liberal Democrats. But look at the Liberal Democrats now, back in third place behind the Conservatives, and Plaid Cymru increasing its majority in Ceredigion. A sign of how difficult it's been for the Liberal Democrats tonight, who've actually across Wales increased their vote share ever so slightly by around a percentage point. And yet there is no Liberal Democrat representation on this Welsh map. Once again, another wipeout for them in Wales.
James, thank you very much. Yeah, dramatic changes in the colours there. Thank you, James. And if we just look at the state of the parties now across the UK, if we can get that up, the Conservatives on 341, 45 gains, and some big names in terms of rock-solid Labour seats just falling away.
Yeah, absolutely breathtaking, really, in terms of some of the things that have changed. Seats in the northeast of England that really set the tone for the night, didn't they? They came in early, places like Workington, that showed that Boris Johnson was hitting exactly where he wanted to hit in those Leave voting Labour areas.
And that was the strategy. That was the strategy, wasn't it? To just target Workington Man and replicate that across the UK. You know,
I think on the graphics James put up there, you know, the difference between Delyn in the north and Cardiff North in the south as such, then tells its own story as such then. But it does show that in a majority game, the message that was put out in this battle won through, because clearly you need a majority in the House of Commons. We've secured that majority now. But as I said in my earlier remarks, what's really, really important is that we deliver on that domestic agenda and don't just get fixated on the Brexit ticket, because we are more than just the Brexit ticket, the Conservative Party is.
You're going to be busy delivering Brexit though, aren't you? That's the problem.
But we've got the capacity to do that now, because whereas before we were bogged down in procedural votes after procedural votes that just zapped the government, there is a clear majority for the government to take control of Parliament, put the business through Parliament.
And should there be, I mean, proper scrutiny, because there are concerns, you know, that it'll be whizzed through committee stage, and that real detailed scrutiny of the deal won't be there.
Oh, there has to be detailed scrutiny. I know that to the average punter in the street sounds very sort of civil service speak, but actually good government depends on good parliamentary scrutiny. And the last thing the Conservative Party needs after this great victory tonight is to fall into the quagmire that 92-97 Parliament fell into. What we need to be doing is delivering on the social agenda that we put forward, delivering on the Brexit agenda, but working with Parliament rather than seeking to dominate it.
I think there's going to be an expectation management issue here as well, because, you know, these are seats that have never voted Tory before, a lot of them. They're not used to having a Conservative MP. They're going to have expectations not only about getting Brexit done, because it's great to use a slogan, but you've got to deliver on it. And I don't think people have quite computed how complicated getting Brexit done is. So see how satisfaction lies then. But also, you know, they're going to expect improvements in public services pretty sharpish. And that's going to be a big ask, isn't it, with everything on the government's agenda?
Oh, clearly, any government is marked out by its first 100 days. I mean, you read most former Prime Ministers' autobiographies, 9 times out of 10, they say they wish they'd done more in the early years. Well, I think Boris Johnson, if you like, by his bruising experience in the last 2 or 3 months, really does realise that he has to take hold of the situation and hit the ground running rather than think, phew, I'm back in number 10, I've got a majority, now's the time to take a breather. It's not about taking a breather, it's about delivering.
And on that point, voter expectation and what people will expect to see change, I think that's really important in an election campaign that in some ways has been quite depressing, because it seems to have focused on a lot of negatives in terms of the perceived character flaws of the two main party leaders, you know, the trust issue around Boris Johnson, the anti-Semitism and accusations of being a weak leader when it comes to Jeremy Corbyn. And, you know, a lot of voters saying for them they were picking between the least worst option. The frustration as well that a general election was even taking place 2.5 years after the last one, because people haven't liked the impasse that there was in Parliament. So, Andrew, would you agree that there is actually a lot of work for politicians of all parties to do now to try to rebuild some some bonds of trust with the electorate?
Well, I think after any election, you know, there's always time for reflection, and the link between the voters is critical in any democracy it is. And I thought the points Glyn was making about changing the dynamics in the way, obviously, the Union is looked at, and importantly, build those links back with Scotland and pull Scotland tighter into the Union, and prove the worth of the Union is a critical in-tray agenda item it is then. But I have the confidence we can do that because we are the Unionist Party at the end of the day.
And in terms of the mechanics of the party then, and behind the scenes, I mean, you know, more or less, Vote Leave moved into Downing Street to deliver this, didn't they? And arguably they have, it's worked. Should Boris Johnson stick with that sort of agenda now, or is it a fresh start, a new team, a new cabinet, or is it steady as she goes? Or does he need... He's presented himself as the change candidate. Does he need to change the team around him?
I disagree with your analogy there that Vote Leave just moved into Downing Street. I mean, there are a lot of personnel in that Downing Street operation from Boris's City Hall days in London as such then, and they get what you need to do to build a consensus. And this election result shows that, you know, we've gone into areas of the country that were just off limits to us, basically. So any government has to have a broad base to it. You can't have a narrow base because you just won't last. You'll topple over. And Boris, via his mayoral ambition and achievements in London, knows that you need to build that base to be successful at the next election. I always remember after the 2015 election, the day after, Central Office sent out the message, it's X number of days till the next election. You know, all parties, even though we're just looking at the results tonight,
you're looking at the Assembly election.
Looking in, well, not necessarily just the Assembly election, but the next general election, because the tone is set.
Yeah, but the Assembly election, I mean, clearly the voters want strong characters. Have you got that sort of leader in Wales at the moment, ready for the Assembly elections? Is Paul Davies your man?
Well, it's a huge privilege to work alongside Paul. I mean, Paul has turned his part of Wales into a safe Conservative area now. He has a strong mandate from the membership. You know, he won it for virtually 70% of the membership vote. I really am excited and look forward to working with Paul over the next, 16, 17 months to the next Assembly election, and work with our new parliamentary colleagues as well.
It's a different style, isn't he? Different style to you, to Boris Johnson. I mean, he's...
I think there's a lot of differences between many people in politics, and I think that's something to be celebrated.
Yeah. But is he the right leader to take you into a crucial...
Oh, without doubt. I mean, as I said, he has the mandate.
Yeah.
110% back, Paul.
He's got some work to do to raise his profile, though, hasn't he? I mean, most people couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
Well, I always used to get criticised for not having a very high profile. At the end of the day, for whatever reason in Wales, Conservative leaders tend to lag behind the other party leaders. There is work to do more generally on some of the infrastructure that is the Welsh Conservative Party. This election result helps us improve that infrastructure because it gives us footholds into areas of Wales, which, as I said, for 15, 20 years we've been looking at. And finally tonight, the slogan I used earlier, you know, we now have a northern blue wall that is built with full planning permission of the voters, and we need to make sure that wall stays up.
And if this was driven by personalities, Laura, looking ahead now to the next election, the Assembly elections, we're looking at Mark Drakeford versus Paul Davies versus Adam Price versus who knows for the Lib Dems. I mean, how does that shape it in terms of personalities and profile?
I don't think we know, but I mean, Andrew made a few really important points there about, you know, how this election has been so successful for the Conservatives. And, you know, the more I think about it, the more it seems to me that this is an election that really the Welsh Conservatives actually play very little part in terms of generating that success. Now, I know that sounds unfair, but I think, you know, you had candidates who arrived late. You had all kinds of candidate problems, and you have to admit by any score it wasn't the ideal start.
Most of that is above my pay grade these days.
Well, sure, I'm sure you don't want to acknowledge this, but I think we can say it wasn't the best.
But actually,
you had a bad start.
Sorry to jump in here, but actually, the person who really does need to be sweating here is Adam Price, I'd suggest. You know, he was on his bus tour of Anglesey last Saturday, all over Twitter. Anglesey was going to go to Plaid. They came third tonight. They did. Where is the traction for Plaid Cymru? You know, I sit in that Assembly chamber week in, week out. I listen to Rhun ap Iorwerth, I listen to Adam Price babbling on that Wales wants independence, Wales wants to remain. Oh, those silly voters got it wrong. They didn't get it wrong. They got it right, and they proved that today.
Okay, but they would argue, and I'm sure Eirfil Ap Gwilym over there would argue that their focus is 2 years hence.
No, it's not. Their focus was on making gains tonight, and they haven't made a single gain tonight, and they were talking it up big. I can remember after 2017, before the 2017 election, Adam Price was on one of the political shows talking they were going to take 8 seats. Again, they haven't turned up to the party. They had their Remain alliance. They're supposed to be the National Party of Wales, and they chose not to stand in seats.
OK, I think it's time to go over to Irfil ap Gwilym and Sarah, and let's get some views from the panel there, because they're getting very agitated listening to this.
Yeah, but I can everyone's just laughing. You're laughing and laughing. Come on. Why was Adam Price going around in his bus, was it, in Anglesey?
Well, of course he was. He's trying to whip up support and trying to motivate our workers, like I'm sure Andrew does.
Which election was he really fighting, though? This one or a future one?
Oh, it's the next one.
Yeah. Yeah?
Oh, it's quite clear. I mean, the challenge for any new party leader, particularly on the Welsh scene, is to get known and to get recognised. And one of the things I was presumptuous enough to give Adam some advice when he became leader, I said, try and spend some more time in 2 places. One, out and around Wales, away from Cardiff Bay. Don't spend all your time in Cardiff Bay. Secondly, in London, because that's where most of the media, which we consume in Wales, is set out. And he's done that very well. And now his recognition will be much higher. And so that's an important stepping stone.
But Caroline, where does this leave the Brexit Party? I mean, you know, no seats, about 4%, 5% generally across Wales, although Blaen y Gwent did very well.
We did very well.
It's not much of a future.
Well, I disagree with you there, because I think that there is a huge future for another party to come into politics. Politics has become stale, and we've seen that. This is an unusual election where, yet again, you've got a two-party state. It's become like a presidential election again. So we want to move away from that type of election becoming the norm, really, because people haven't got the choice. So more proportional representation would be a good idea, to bring smaller parties in and make politics more interesting.
And will you, in like social media and on the edges and things like that, be trying to kind of police the Brexit to make sure it's Brexit enough?
Of course we will.
So will you be sort of there irritating?
Watching exactly what Boris Johnson is doing. I mean, we feel that we've given him an excellent opportunity, really, because we stood our candidates down in lots of areas.
So he owes you something, does he?
Sorry? No, well, he doesn't owe us anything, obviously. But what I'm saying is, we hope that by making that, you know, by giving that to the Conservatives, that we certainly hope that they will deliver on what they've promised the people and what they've promised all of us, really. So we want to make sure that Brexit is delivered.
Yeah, in the way that you want it.
Well, in the way that it should be delivered.
Right, OK, we had a kind of consensus about an hour ago.
Yeah.
It seems to be splitting again. William, which election were you fighting? You were very much fighting this election,
we were fighting this election.
So you go into the next one dented?
Dented, but I also agree with Andrew RT. We need to view this as an opportunity that we can regroup, rebuild, and we have a strong selection of candidates ready in place for the National Assembly elections, and we're going to be going for that seriously. Clearly, we've got some thinking to do, we've got some regrouping to do, and we've got some sleep to catch up on.
So will you give up arguing about Brexit and how bad you think it's going to be? Or you just think, right, we've lost that game, and now we're going to talk about education?
At a parliamentary level, we need to be fully engaged as part of the opposition, which hopefully will be more effectively led by the official leader of the opposition in the time to come. And we've got a crucial role to play in ensuring that scrutiny is effective and that we don't allow anything to slip through that could be detrimental to our interests.
I wonder who the leader of the official opposition will be, Wayne David.
That's a big question.
We'll have to have a good discussion about it.
Anyone could guess, really, no?
There'll be plenty of candidates coming forward, I'm sure, men and women.
Yeah, who would you like to see? You're not going to tell me.
Come on.
Come on.
I've genuinely got an open mind at the moment. I'm inclined towards Keir Starmer. Because I think he's got the intellect, the ability, the charisma, I think, to appeal to not just to Labour Party's core support, but to appeal to the whole country. But there are many other candidates as well, and I'm not tying myself to any particular person at this stage.
Is the Labour Party now a kind of south of England and a bit of Wales party?
No, I don't think. I think the Labour Party is still a UK-wide party, but I think we have to look very, very carefully at not just being a London party in particular, but also a party which can appeal even more strongly to parts of the north of England, which we clearly lost.
Isn't your party the only one that hasn't had a woman leader?
Yes, it is. And that's one of the things that we need to think about. I said I'm inclined towards Keir Starmer, but I think there's plenty of women coming forward as well who should be given careful attention. And maybe we come to the collected conclusion, but it's about time we do have a woman.
And one of the things that you, Sam, will definitely notice as somebody that watches the Conservative Party, we now have 3 women Conservative MPs in Wales.
Indeed.
Now, we've never had that before. Will that make a difference? You know, it's often said, I don't know whether you agree or not, that women are more consensual and things like that. If the Conservative Party is trying to bring Britain together, will that help?
Well, I study Margaret Thatcher, and I can tell you that she wasn't very consensual.
She wasn't very consensual.
All the time. But if we're just looking at the history here for a second, we've just had the centenary of Nancy Astor becoming the first ever female MP, so we've gone 100 years without the Conservative Party ever having had a woman MP in Wales, and then suddenly we've got 3 just after that sort of landmark. And that in itself is significant. Whether it changes actually Conservative politics in Wales, I don't know. It's interesting to note that some of the women who have been selected for their seats seem to have actually been selected quite late for the seat. There's something perhaps telling about that. Will that determine what kind of MP they're going to be? Will that mean that they're going to be a little bit of an unknown quantity? But no, you know, it's good that a party that has had plenty of MPs from Wales go to Westminster has now got some women in the mix as well.
And how much of a different party do you think it'll be in Wales as opposed to the UK?
Oh,
you know, we're all looking forward. We're looking ahead to the next election. Perhaps not necessarily what we all perhaps should be doing, but you know, does it need to be a different Conservative Party here going into the Assembly elections?
This is something I've grappled with and I've tried to write a PhD thesis about. You know, is it sort of a different brand of Welsh conservatism, and are the personnel in Wales a little bit different? You tend to find that sometimes Welsh Tory MPs are a bit softer, sit sort of slightly to the left on the spectrum. But
Jim Davis is looking a bit nervous here.
But then also, you know, you look at someone like David.
He's very soggy.
Softer? Are you lot softer?
No, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say Glyn is, but you know, and you look at someone like David T.C. Davis, who certainly isn't soft at all. So it's not a mould that everybody fits into.
Well, it's like across Britain. I mean, I would tend to be on the soft side in a Conservative Party, I suppose, and David T.C. would be good friends. Yeah. We have debates and we might disagree about something, but I'm a huge fan of David's, you know. I mean, but every party has these differing. But I mean, I tended to be, the first time I voted Plaid Cymru.
Well done.
Because I got an instinctive Welshness about me. And that's still there. And I will always be there, but I'm still, I'm part of the UK Conservative Party.
But that Welshness about the Conservative Party is something they've always struggled with as well. You know, I mean, obviously there are plenty of Welsh speakers in the Parliamentary Party or were in the Parliamentary Party, but there is sometimes MPs from the Conservatives are tarred with the sort of English brush.
Well, and it'll be a very English cabinet, will it not?
Well, and perhaps that doesn't matter either.
OK, who's going to be Secretary of State for Wales, or will there not be one? Will there be a Minister for the regions?
I mean, it really is above my pay grade. But
it doesn't matter, we're very egalitarian here.
I was just going to go on to say, even if it wasn't above my pay grade, I don't know. I mean, there's candidates that who've done it before, who haven't done it before, and there's always a possibility of going back to the position of a few years ago when we had a sort of an overall Secretary of State for the regions with an individual minister for each country. There's a number of options, and at the moment we don't know which it is.
So has this election kind of settled things for a few years, do you think?
Oh, no, I think so.
You think it has?
Yeah, I think it's brought stability by having the majority
Glyn from the winning
government.
Party doesn't think it is.
No, I don't. I think it settled the issue of whether we're leaving the European Union. And we are leaving the European Union. Yeah. But I do think certainly next year, there'll be a big challenge in terms of the trade deal. I think there's massive challenge in terms of bringing the United Kingdom back together. I mean, you can't do that overnight, but I mean, it's a huge challenge. I mean, there's challenges facing the incoming Prime Minister, who's now got a freer hand than he had previously.
And that's what I mean by stability.
There's that question mark for our country, whether or not the Conservative government has come in with the confidence it can have now in a big majority, can actually deliver.
Thank you very much. Bethan, back to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, we're hearing that Boris Johnson has now left his constituency. So he's presumably heading back to Downing Street, straight back to work to get that Brexit done. Let's speak to one of his former advisors when he was Mayor of London. Guto Harri joins us from central London. Bore da. Good morning, Guto. Did you expect your former boss to do quite this well?
Bore da. Well, he was quietly confident, I think, that the pitch was very disciplined, very tight. He was up against a Labour leader who was here at Labour headquarters about 10 minutes ago looking very crestfallen. He was up against a Labour leader who was not credible to a lot of people, with a pitch that was not credible to a lot of people, but crucially without a policy on the single biggest issue of our time. Jeremy Corbyn has failed over the last 3 years to come up with a distinctive policy on Brexit that could appeal to a lot of people out there who were there for the taking tonight. He didn't manage to grab them. And Boris Johnson, therefore, managed quite a sweeping victory, including in Wales, where he first stood for Parliament back in 1997. Yes, he was hammered then in Clwyd South, lost the battle, but tonight I think he would tell you that he won the war in Clwyd South.
And in terms of Brexit, now we know it's going to happen. He says he will deliver it at the end of January, but then the real negotiation starts. You know him well. Do you think he can get that deal by the end of the year, or will he look at extending, or will he be willing to leave on no deal?
I only need to invite you to look back to the summer when everybody said there was no way he could renegotiate that deal that Theresa May had, that Europe wouldn't even look at it, that they wouldn't listen to him, that he wouldn't be taken seriously. He did renegotiate a deal in record time. He did surprise people. Perceptions of him were challenged very, very quickly on the continent. And he, just before he, forced Parliament into a general election, essentially, he managed to get a vote for that deal. Now, there's no doubt now he's got the numbers in Parliament to get the deal through. Trade deal is always going to be tricky, but just look at what he's managed to deliver in the past, and he would probably say that that's a basis for being slightly less pessimistic about the future. I don't underestimate, personally, the challenges of making Brexit work. I still think the onus of proof is on those who have advocated Brexit. And we'll see down the line in years to come whether it's a good idea or not. But it's certainly an idea now that has captured the imagination and has got the endorsement of the people of England and Wales, no doubt, in a general election as well as in a referendum.
And what do you think we're going to see now? A Prime Minister who's slightly different to the campaigner we saw previously. He's got that comfortable majority now. You always describe him as a one-nation Tory. He certainly does. Is it more of the same, or are we going to see a different Boris Johnson now?
Well, he's got the freedom now to be himself. He's got the moral and political authority, if you like, that comes from winning an election across the UK, not just an election among, a tiny band of diminishing Conservative Party members. So that frees him up. He no longer needs to be the prisoner of one wing of his party. So if he chooses to be that Brexiteer that we've seen taking a very aggressive stance since the summer, then that will now be for him a matter of choice. I think, personally, though I don't know, that he's desperately keen to go back to the kind of character he was when he was mayor of this city, London, where he managed to attract supporters from across the political spectrum by appealing on policies that were much broader in their appeal than those that traditionally had appealed to the narrow ranks of the Conservatives. I think tonight he's proved if he can win in Wrexham, if he can win in Clwyd South, if he can win in Ynys Môn, then he's not doing so because people there are demented or misguided. There is something about the formula, the character, the man that seems to work for parts of the UK. Not underestimating in other parts, and in Scotland in particular, the answer is a very different one.
Yeah, and Scotland is a different story. We talked a lot about Scotland, but he is certainly heading back to Downing Street. If you were to get the call, Guto Harri, would you go back and work for your former boss? Would you go back to back him up in Downing Street?
I think he's just proved that he's got a great team in place. They've won a big general election victory, one that hasn't been won since the days of Margaret Thatcher in the early 80s. Bigger in some ways because they've won constituencies in a straight fight with Labour that have never been won. I think he's got all the people around him that he needs to do what he wants there. He just has to be himself now and try and stop being this divisive, aggressive, figure that has alienated so many people perhaps over the last few months.
That was a politician's answer.
What?
That was a politician's answer. Would you take the call?
That was a commentator's answer in the cold and the
Okay,
and
we'll
the
let
rain,
you go.
I think. I'm
We'll
not
let you
expecting
go
a
before
call.
those. The wind. It's very windy, but very Christmassy. Guitar Harry, thank you very much. Richard Wynne-Jones. I mean, the scale of the success of Boris Johnson is phenomenal tonight. For anybody waking up this morning, I mean,
It is staggering.
Yeah.
It is genuinely staggering. But his achievement, his party's achievement is staggering. But also the achievement of the SNP is completely staggering. The fact that Northern Ireland has gone the way that it's gone is also incredible. The Unionists did keep one MP in Belfast, but they lost the seat of Edward Carson in North Belfast. And then in Wales is very interesting because we've been talking at various points during the programme about, is this the election where this 100-year Labour domination of Welsh electoral politics comes to an end? Is this the election? And it's not been that election. What's interesting about this is that the same basic gap between the Conservatives in England and the Conservatives in Wales remains. It's always around 10%. Okay? And so I think for what I was looking for tonight is, do they actually begin to cross that divide between their performance in England, their performance in Wales? And actually, no, they've got 36% in Wales and around 46% in England. So what's happened is when the tide is high in England, and it's really high in England, the tide is high in Wales, but at a lower level. So yes, it's a fantastic result for the Welsh Conservatives. They're going to be absolutely delighted, but they haven't actually changed that historical pattern that goes back 100 years, actually goes back further than that, where the Conservatives underperform in Wales relative to England.
I think Richard's right with that, but there's another dimension to it, which I think is psychological and cultural. The fact that some of these seats, which have probably lots of people there have never thought about voting Conservative before, have done, and they've done it in large enough numbers for the seat to go to the Conservatives. And what that means in our times of great electoral volatility is that other seats could go, whether that's in Assembly elections or another tier of elections.
I mean, Labour have a huge task. The other thing which I think is very striking about this election in Wales in particular is it looks as if we're entering three-party politics. The Liberal Democrats have had a catastrophic election. In those target seats where they put in a lot of resources, like Ceredigion, like Brecon and Radnor, like Cardiff Central, which was the jewel in the crown, the best organised Liberal Democratic constituency operation in the UK, or in Britain at one stage. What's the future for them in the Welsh context?
To lose the leader and the leader in Wales.
It's very, very serious.
But the game plan wasn't it, Fliss? You've got Boris Johnson promising Brexit, so let's go to... People want extremes, they were thinking. Let's revoke, let's cancel. And it was a miscalculation.
I've been thinking during the cold, wet, miserable days of this Christmas election about the heat wave in September by the seaside at the Liberal Democrat Party conference, and the buoyancy and the optimism at that conference. They thought they had something that was going to bring them back. And I think ultimately they engaged in a hubristic exercise which has been mercilessly punished. They pushed for an election that they were in no position to fight. I think, one of the problems that they've had and that other parties have said in the very seats that where they were trying to come back was, where are their foot soldiers? Where is the infrastructure that the Liberal Democrats used to be able to deploy so effectively? Not there. Their tactics were wrong. The decision to go for revoke upset even a lot of Remainers who couldn't quite swallow that. And, Jo Swinson has not been able to lead effectively, and obviously, she's suffered the ultimate punishment with the loss of her seat tonight.
Just to clarify one thing, breaking news, there will be no skinny dipping, Felicity.
Right, okay, we're looking forward to that.
The SNP. This is Ruth Davidson, who said, the former leader of the Conservatives in Scotland, who said she would go skinny dipping in Hogmanay if they got 50 seats. That's unlikely now. They're on 46. They could go up to 49, but they probably won't.
Saved
They can't.
by the bell.
Right, so this
Quite,
isn't a
go up to
former
50.
politician going back on a promise then. She
No,
is being let
she's
off
all
the
right.
hook.
She's
Yeah.
just
Okay,
saved by the
It's
bell.
still a pretty astounding
So,
result for the SNP, though,
yeah.
by any standard.
But they're on 48 now. There's one left to go. But Scotland, what a story. In every nation, there's such a story tonight.
Yeah, and the other thing, while we're drawing to a kind of close, is obviously the next big election. Obviously, the police commissioner election. We'll be sitting here all night doing that one. But we've got the devolved election, and I think one of the key lessons for Labour in this election. I mean, why have Labour done poorly in North Wales as compared to South? Betsy Cadwallader, the health board, is such a problem for them. It's been in special measures for 4 years now. This is going to be the issue in North Wales in the election, unless in the devolved election, unless Labour finally sort this out. So this should be a real warning to Mark Drakeford and his cabinet.
And just to sum up, what will you take away from tonight?
I think the new identities that the electorate have with regard to Leave and Remain. You know, this is probably the last Brexit election, in all honesty, bearing in mind what lies ahead now. But I think it was played so skillfully and strategically by the Conservatives in a way that allowed people to vote for them based on that Leave identity. And that is skillful politics, you know, in a way, the complete opposite of what Felicity's described the Liberal Democrats doing. And I think that played incredibly well, particularly in the north, you know, where it was relatively easily executed.
And Fliss,
well, you know, in terms of how unpleasant and divisive this election has been, it's been an important election. It's certainly significant in terms of the future direction of the country. But we all have to hope that the bitterness and the division and the unpleasantness can somehow be brought back around, because the level of cynicism that's being felt now by a lot of voters and the disconnect with the political class is profoundly a matter for concern. It should be for everybody, really, and I think everybody, politicians, voters and the media, we all need to sit back and think about the direction we're going in.
Well, maybe we should do that right now, because it's been 8 hours. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to you all. Thank you to Sarah and the panel, and to all our contributors. It has flown. What an evening. That is it from us. Coverage now continues on our news programmes and online throughout the day. Whether you've stayed with us all night, well done, or you've been dipping in and out, or just woken up, thanks very much for being with us. It was described as the most important election in a generation, the first Christmas poll for almost a century. And this morning, Boris Johnson is heading back to Downing Street. Jeremy Corbyn won't lead Labour into the next election, and Liberal Democrat leader Jo Swinson has lost her seat. Thanks for watching. From all of us, goodbye.